Hey everyone, per your requests, I'm starting Soul Land 5, the Rebirth of Tang today. My channel ISN and Oppos, T monetized, so if you and Oppos able to, please support me on PayPal to help me stay active. Chapters 441 through 460 of the previous episode. Tang secures a crucial alliance for humanity by defeating the god-level Ice Maiden clan leader in a fierce duel, protecting his half-Ice Maiden senior brother, Wu Bingji. Preparing for the Ancestral Court Elite competition, Tang registers while hiding his true power, revealing only a second-tier bloodline. He is thrilled to unexpectedly reunite with Mei Gongzi, and immediately teams up with her for the doubles tournament. To heal his battle injuries and prepare for the fights ahead, Tang endures intense physical tempering, using the extreme heat of the Sunborn Sacred Mountain. Thank you. Now let's get back to the story of Soul Land 5, the Rebirth of Tang. The intense heat seemed to imprint itself into his body, significantly affecting the Blue-Silver Emperor imprint. The surface of the Blue-Silver Emperor imprint had a layer of fiery red light, and even the appearance of the vines had changed slightly. Their color deepened and they somewhat shrank in size, as if they had been roasted, but their toughness noticeably increased. In addition, they felt hot to the touch, obviously unusual for a plant. Indeed, the refining effect was significant. Under the intense firepower of Sunborn Sacred Mountain, the Blue-Silver Emperor was subtly evolving. The Sunborn flower, the epitome of extreme yang, was remarkable. That yang aura even influenced Tang and Oppos' Lion-Tiger Golden Astral imprint somewhat. The Lion-Tiger Golden Astral, already a manifestation of extreme yang and brute force, became even purer under the Sunfire and Oppos' tempering. After the competition, he could suggest to the Lion-Tiger Sword Saint to try out this tempering. Although the place naturally repelled demons with Big Cat and Oppos' cultivation level, he should be able to endure for a while, and even if he wasn't there for a long time, the Sunfire would help refine his bloodline power. Reflecting on his learnings, Tang quickly entered a meditative state. Tomorrow, he planned to visit another place, the sacred mountain of Earthshade Nymph Emperor. With yang comes yin. With extreme yang and rigidity, there is extreme yin and softness. The balance of yin and yang, the combination of firmness and gentleness, was the true path of cultivation. Tang intended to visit the domains of these two strongest nymph emperors to experience their mysteries personally. Although he only felt a bit of the essence at the foot of Sunborn Sacred Mountain, it had already given him many insights and a certain understanding of the sun-nurtured Sunborn Nymph Emperor. As the Earthshade Nymph Emperor forcefully bought the Sunborn flower petal at the auction, it was evident that these two nymph emperors had a very close relationship. After today and Oppos' tempering by extreme yang and rigidity, I and Oppos' experience extreme yin and softness tomorrow to see if the combination of the two can bring more benefits. The next day at noon, Tang arrived at Earthshade Sacred Mountain. Compared to the red yang-filled Sunborn Sacred Mountain, Earthshade Sacred Mountain was gloomy, entirely black, and filled with eerie yin energy, which gave off an unpleasant sensation. Tang paid the fee and stepped into the range of Earthshade Sacred Mountain. The climbers here were noticeably more numerous than those at Sunborn Sacred Mountain, but everyone wore black cloaks, completely covering themselves for reasons unknown. Amid the eerie yin energy, Tang stepped onto the first step. Instantly, waves of chilling yin energy surged from all directions, attacking him. Tang unleashed his Blue-Silver Emperor once more. The extreme yang energy he had absorbed the day before hadn't Oppos' been fully digested yet. Tang thought it should provide some resistance against this chilling yin energy. However, the moment he released the Blue-Silver Emperor, its vines began to stiffen. Almost tangible streams of yin energy pouring from above frantically surged into the Blue-Silver Emperor. Tang almost instinctively stepped back, retreating from the stairs. He couldn't and Oppos' care less if the 10 Naturi coins were wasted, but he was a second too late. With a series of cracking sounds, the Blue-Silver Emperor vines began to shatter inch by inch. Even the blue-silver emperor imprint within Tang San and Appo's body showed signs of cracking as if it was about to disintegrate. The pain was so intense that Tang San couldn't and Appo's help but spit out a mouthful of blood. His body and Appo's yin and yang energies intersected, not merging but rapidly colliding with each other. How can this be happening? Tang San was shocked, but he reacted immediately. He activated the chronocroc bloodline, slowing down all changes around his blue-silver emperor imprint within his body, then quickly turned and left the Earthshade Sacred Mountain and Appo's area. Somewhere at the door of a dark palace, an old woman stood gazing into the distance. A black robe completely covered her, revealing only deep blue eyes. Suddenly, she seemed to sense something. Her eyes narrowed and a hint of disdain appeared at the corner of her mouth. End quote. Another fool dreaming of the impossible. If extreme yin and yang were so easily fused, the Solstice Empire would no longer be dominated by the two of us. End quote. She muttered to herself, a trace of pain flashing in her eyes. She sighed deeply and turned to walk back into the dark palace. Tang San couldn't and Appo's even care if he might alert others. He quickly instructed the carriage driver, then found a secluded corner and activated the peacock imprint, using spatial teleportation to return to the White Tiger Grand Hotel as fast as possible. He never expected the forces he faced to be so domineering. When extreme yin and yang interacted, a truly massive reaction occurred. Moreover, the yin energy that had entered his body continued to produce a series of reactions, affecting his blue-silver emperor imprint and even his mysterious heaven technique. The impact of the yin and yang energies resulted in a repelling force, making even his soul core unstable. This was too overbearing. This was just a bit of the power from the two nymph emperors and Appo's sacred mountains, yet even his balanced and neutral mysterious heaven technique couldn't and Appo's harmonize it, causing such a drastic reaction. With his previous experience, he never could have imagined a scenario. What should he do? The best solution was to cut off the blue-silver emperor imprint and discard it, along with the contaminated part of his energy. That would instantly solve the problem. However, doing so would directly reduce Tang San and Appo's cultivation level, which was unacceptable with the ancestral court elite competition about to start. But what could he do if he didn't and Appo's cut off the blue-silver emperor? Forcefully absorb and dissolve them? These two opposed energies were too overbearing. They only clashed like a needlepoint against the tip of an onion, and showed no possibility of reconciliation. Tang San had tried using the chronocroc imprint to slow their interaction, but it still couldn't and Appo's solve the problem. Even splitting the space between them couldn't and Appo's completely sever their connection. He couldn't and Appo's resolve this issue even with the powerful abilities of time and space. How could the sun-nurtured sun-born nymph emperor and the earth-shade nymph emperor be friends? Their attributes counteracted each other to such an extent that they would constantly clash if they were friends. Cutting off the blue-silver emperor it is. Tang San was never one to be indecisive. Between two evils, choose the lesser. Even if it meant losing some of cultivation, he couldn't and Appo's care about that now. Just as he was about to extirpate the blue-silver emperor imprint, however, he suddenly glanced at the foremost of his bloodline imprints. The black and white vortex-shaped imprint rotated steadily. It was the only one unaffected by extreme yin-yang clashes. It seemed like a detached observer, calmly operating on its own. Of course, why didn't I think of it? Maybe time and space can't stop yin and yang from clashing. But what about a bit of luck? With this thought, Tang San hesitated no longer. He immediately used his divine consciousness to activate the polar domain. The black and white energies silently emanated from his body, flickering slightly. Centered on Tang San, the polar domain extended to a 2-foot radius, enveloping him. Immediately, the flow of fortune within Tang San began to change. The wildly volatile energies were still conflicting, but some subtle changes had clearly started. Even as they clashed, the yin and yang energies seemed to slide past each other, intertwining and pulling each other into a spiral. Although they immediately clashed again, that spiral created a rotational force that decreased the intensity of the subsequent collisions. The polar domain consumed a ridiculous amount of spiritual power, but Tang San grit his teeth and maintained it. It seemed that the state of good fortune he was in was the key to all this. As they collided, the extreme yang and yin energies continued to intertwine and rotate, leading to fewer and fewer clashes and an increasing number of instances where they slipped by each other. A hint of joy appeared on Tang San's face. The cracks on the blue-silver emperor imprint slowly became more numerous, but at the same time, the clashes between yin and yang that caused these cracks were fewer and fewer. The fragments of the broken blue-silver emperor imprint were drawn into the rotation, turning into what seemed like sprinkles of light and merging in, causing the extreme yang and yin energies to stabilize more and more in a virtuous cycle. They seemed to be forming a new and unique imprint that ran stably like the vortex of the polar domain. The yin and yang energies that were destroying his blue-silver emperor imprint were thus brought under control, and the energies that had contaminated his own internal energy were slowly drawn into the new imprint as well. This finally allowed Tang San and Appo's internal state to stabilize. This polar domain is genuinely amazing. Not only can it be used in battle, but it also has such benefits in cultivation. With it, Tang San felt that there was almost no need to worry about cultivation deviation. Although he couldn't and Appo's yet determine the strength of the blue-silver emperor imprint after integrating the yin and yang energies, it was clearly powerful. He would need to wait until he fully recovered to test its specific applications. After this ordeal, both his soul power and spiritual power were significantly depleted. Once he confirmed his stable internal state, Tang San began meditative cultivation. It wasn't Appo's until evening that he woke from meditation, and found that his strength was mostly restored. Focusing inward, Tang San saw that the new yin-yang blue-silver emperor imprint was still rotating, seemingly absorbing yin and yang energies from the air to sustain itself without any sign of weakening. Now mostly recovered, Tang San was ready to experiment and see what this new imprint could do. He activated his polar domain to avoid unnecessary danger, then infused his spirit to activate the blue-silver emperor imprint again. The yin-yang blue-silver emperor imprint suddenly expanded the moment he activated it. The yin and yang energies spread out, filling him. The Ancestral Court Elite Competition was one of the most important events in the Ancestral Court. Many strong individuals from various races had gained the attention of their respective races by showcasing their skills in the elite competition, gradually becoming prominent figures or even leaders within their clans. The competition stage was finally completed in the massive Ancestral Court Square. Surrounding the Ancestral Court Square were the sacred mountain palaces of the emperors. This was the core area with 6 emperor palaces nearby. The Ancestral Court Elite Competition followed a knockout format, meaning participants had only one fighting chance. If they failed, their time in the competition was over. Even those with formidable strength could be eliminated in the first round if they faced a strong opponent. People often say that luck is a part of one's strength, and in this world, luck was a far more tangible factor than it was elsewhere. Today was the first day of the competition, and the most important event was not the matches themselves but the drawing ceremony. The opponents and the positions in the bracket greatly influenced the chances of securing a good rank. In the history of the Ancestral Court Elite Competition, there were many instances where strong contenders were placed in the same group, resulting in deadly clashes. In addition, this elite competition had introduced a new format, the doubles match. This was a historical first, so the stands around the Ancestral Court Square were sold out long ago. The massive square could accommodate over 500,000 Ancestral Court denizens to watch the competition. As for order, it was never an issue in the Ancestral Court. With the pressure from the demon and nymph emperors, who would dare disrupt the proceedings? Early in the morning, the citizens were already entering, waiting in the stands for the exciting competitions to begin. On the northern side were the VIP seats, accessible only to clan leaders and other nobles. The emperors Wuden and Appo's come in person. They could watch the competition by simply sweeping their divine consciousness over the arena. At this time, the contestants were lining up from the registration area to draw lots. The order was first come, first draw. The individual and doubles competitions alternated, with the individual competition on the first day and the doubles on the second. So, today was just the draw for the individual competition. The doubles draw would take place tomorrow before the actual doubles matches. Tang San arrived early today with the Lion Tiger Sword Saint, Big Cat, to draw lots. Generally, the closer two people drew lots together, the less likely they were to end up in the same group. With over 300 participants, there were 16 groups, each with about 20 people. Only one group member would advance, meaning that anyone else in the same group would be eliminated. Thus, Tang San and Big Cat hoped not to draw the same group. It wasn't too much of a problem for Tang San because he had a celestial fox's luck, and at the same time was not a celestial fox, so nobody would suspect him of cheating. Tang San and Big Cat had finished drawing lots. Tang San was in the third group and Big Cat was in the sixth group, so they were not going to fight each other. If they reached the top 16, there would be another draw, so until then all they had to do was their best. After finishing his draw, Tang San waited at the entrance for Mei Gongzi. He needed to solve this communication issue since he couldn't contact her directly. Otherwise, how would they draw lots together for the doubles competition tomorrow? He didn't have to wait long. Tang San and Appo's eyes lit up as he saw Mei Gongzi approaching, clad in a long white dress. She looked gorgeous, from a human point of view of course, and attracted the attention of many other contestants. However, Mei Gongzi seemed oblivious to these gazes, maintaining an icy expression. Tang San walked directly toward her, and Mei Gongzi also noticed him. He approached her and said softly, "This is for you," As he spoke, he handed Mei Gongzi a small communicator he had made. At the same time, when their hands touched, he surreptitiously sent a stream of fortune her way. "Use your spiritual power to activate it, and you can contact me. This will make it easier for us to communicate later. Reach out to me anytime if needed," Azura said. After that he walked away. This wasn't a suitable place for conversation. Mei Gongzi looked at the small device in her hand, noticing it was designed to be worn on the ear. She glanced in the direction Tang San had left, marveling at how considerate he was. She put on the small communicator, infused it with spiritual power and asked softly, "Can you hear me?" "I can hear you," Azura and Appo's voice responded. "Which group are you in?" Mei Gongzi asked. "I and Appo's in the third group and Big Cat is in the sixth group. It should be fine if you and Appo's not in these two groups. We probably one and Appo's end up in the same group." "Okay, I and Appo's let you know my group shortly." Before long, Mei Gongzi finished her drawing. The fortune from the celestial fox imprint worked well, and she ended up in the ninth group. 3, 6, and 9, those were their groups for the individual competition. With the groups determined, the competition was next. The competition format was simple, brutally straightforward even. Each participant had a number assigned in the order they'd joined the group. For example, Tang San was number 6 of Group 3. Therefore, his opponent today was number 5 of Group 3. It was as simple as that. This purely elimination-based competition was undoubtedly the most brutal, but it had one advantage. There would be no strategizing or anything of the kind. All one had to do was finish off their opponents while minimizing injury. The contestants took their places on the 3 massive stages that were 200 meters in diameter. 3 matches would take place simultaneously, between the first 3 pairs of Group 1. Today was the first round of elimination, so it was naturally the longest. The competition ended only when all the matches were completed, so naturally, there would be over 150 matches. But 3 stages were running simultaneously, and as soon as one match finished, the next contestants would step up without pause. There was one single rule: anything goes. Any weapon could be used. If a contestant had a divine weapon, that was their advantage. A match was lost if one side surrendered, died, or was knocked off the stage. Competitions on the Demon Continent were straightforward and brutal. This method saved the most time. At this time, the 6 contestants of the first group had taken the stage. There were no participants from the same race, but it was clear that they were all from powerful clans. Each stage had a god-level judge. Their role was usually simply to announce the start and the winner of the match. The first match sparked immediate excitement. Those who dared to participate were mainly at the 9th cultivation order, and they all had second-tier or even first-tier bloodlines. As soon as the battle began, powerful auras erupted. For a moment, it seemed like the intense bloodline energies on the 3 stages would soar into the sky. Every contestant knew this was their best chance to showcase their abilities. Their performance here would determine whether they could secure more resources to aim for godhood in the near future. As long as one could advance from the group stage in the elite competition, they would undoubtedly be granted more cultivation resources by their respective clans. Advancing further would be even more impressive, and the top 3 would be considered absolute prodigies. Tang San was in a corner of the waiting area with Big Cat. To avoid attracting attention from other contestants, the burly Big Cat wore a large cloak. Tang San stood beside him, mostly hidden by his shadow, making it hard to draw notice. From their vantage point they could see the match on stage 1. At this moment the 2 contestants on the stage were from 2 mighty races. The male contestant on the left was a strong competitor from some clan of the Phoenix race, while the male contestant on the right was from the Solstice Empire and Appo's Sharp Gold clan, metal element nymphs with a second-tier bloodline. End quote. This match should be straightforward. The attribute advantage is too obvious, end quote. Big Cat whispered. Everyone knew that fire countered metal. The Phoenix race generally had fire attribute, first-tier bloodlines, while the Sharp Gold clan had a second-tier bloodline. Given similar cultivation orders, attributes and heritage would determine a lot. Of course, many things could change during the battle, and no one could guarantee a sure win, but the Phoenix male's chances were undoubtedly higher. End quote. Anyone who dares to participate can't be that easy to beat. Let and Appo's watch and see, end quote. Tang San whispered. The Sharp Gold nymph had a tall, slender build, a triangular head, long arms and legs, and silver-white skin. His eyes were light gold. Metal element bloodlines combined offense and defense, but their one weakness was an opponent that could use the fire element. The Phoenix demon opposite him looked no different from a human. At this moment fiery red wings spread from his back, flapping to hover mid-air. Intense flames surged, making him the most dazzling figure on the 3 stages. End quote. This Phoenix demon probably doesn't and Appo's have much combat experience, though his cultivation ISN and Appo's weak, end quote. Big Cat said, frowning. With Big Cat and Appo's rich combat experience, he could tell from the flashy flight that the opponent didn't and Appo's have much battle experience. Such showiness was undoubtedly for the spectators, but was it essential? Compared to him, the Sharp Gold nymph was much more low-key. He spread his arms at his sides and quickly rushed toward his opponent without releasing any aura. The Phoenix demon flapped his wings forward, propelling himself backward while a sea of intense flames swept toward the Sharp Gold nymph. The Sharp Gold nymph didn't and Appo's dodge. He brought his arms together above his head, and they transformed into a long blade. His speed doubled almost instantly as he charged through the flames. The Phoenix warrior seemed to sense something and flapped his wings again to soar high. He was naturally skilled at flying and believed that as long as he maintained his distance and used Phoenix flames to incinerate his opponent, victory would be a matter of time. But was that really the case? The first blast of flames suddenly split apart, and it became apparent that the Sharp Gold nymph had transformed into a blade, soaring into the sky. Yes, his entire body had become a long blade under the cover of the flames. The silver-white blade had a faint red hue, not from being scorched by the Phoenix flames, but from a bloody aura. End quote. Hellblade? End quote. Big Cat blurted out. Compared to Tang San, he had more combat experience and immediately recognized the Sharp Gold nymph and Appo's technique. The speed of the Hellblade and Appo's burst was simply incredible. It sliced through the scorching Phoenix flames one by one, reaching the Phoenix demon almost instantly. Realizing the danger, the Phoenix demon, a standout even among his own exceptional race, took evasive measures. His right wing swept toward the side of the Hellblade, and simultaneously, his eyes turned golden red. He opened his mouth and spat out a thin golden red flame. Phoenix True Fire. This was his most potent flame. The Hellblade didn't and Appo's evade the Phoenix True Fire. Instead it rose horizontally and continued to slash out. The Phoenix True Fire landed on the Hellblade, burning a hole straight through it. But the Hellblade also slashed fiercely at the Phoenix demon's right wing. That slash made him fall from the sky screaming, with his right wing almost completely severed. End quote. Injury for injury. This sharp gold nymph has decisiveness, experience, and is ruthless to himself, end quote. Big Cat said with some admiration. The sharp gold nymph was inferior to his opponent regarding heritage and bloodline. Even though the Hellblade could cut through ordinary phoenix flames, it could not even touch the Phoenix True Fire. Yet when the Phoenix True Fire arrived, the sharp gold nymph did not dodge. He preferred to let himself be burned while heavily injuring his opponent. A grounded phoenix was relatively more straightforward to deal with. Both competitors landed simultaneously. The sharp gold clan member reverted to his original form, but his left arm now had a gaping hole above the elbow from which a crimson hue spread into his body. Without hesitation, he transformed his right arm into a blade and cut off his left arm to prevent the Phoenix True Fire from spreading through his body. Then he sprang up again, transforming into a slightly smaller Hellblade and slashing toward the Phoenix once more. The Phoenix Demon was clearly superior to his opponent in every aspect. But at this moment the opponent and Oppo's ferocious tactics made him panic. The Phoenix True Fire burned wildly, attempting to scorch the enemy to death. However, this time the Hellblade, still exuding a fierce aura, traced a graceful arc in the air, suddenly changing direction and flying back to its previous position. The Phoenix True Fire twisted the air on stage 1 into a fiery red, and a Phoenix and Oppo's cry echoed, creating a magnificent spectacle. But on this massive 200-meter diameter stage, the range of the Phoenix True Fire and Oppo's coverage was limited. Within such a broad space it couldn't and Oppo's envelop the opponent, so it couldn't and Oppo's achieve its intended effect. In other words, it was just a flashy waste of energy. Using the Phoenix True Fire required a significant cost. The Phoenix Demon was naturally aware of that. Yet he had still panicked and expended far too much energy for nothing. Anyone with keen eyes could see that he was being led by the opponent and couldn't and Oppo's fully utilize his true strength. Although the sharp gold nymph and Oppo's cultivation was inferior, he rendered his inexperienced opponent helpless. The Hellblade could cut through ordinary phoenix flames, and the Phoenix True Fire couldn't and Oppo's hit. Thus, after much back and forth, this match ended up lasting the longest of the first 3. In the end, the Phoenix Demon fainted on the stage from overexerting his phoenix flames and lost the match. The sharp gold nymph won. End quote. What am I supposed to say now? Having all that bloodline energy and being so useless, these major clans truly leave me speechless. If it were me, I and Oppo's just dodge and fight. Even if ordinary flames get cut through, it doesn't end Oppo's mean the Hellblade 1 and Oppo's get worn out. Just control the field with normal flames, and use Phoenix True Fire for protection at critical moments. The sharp gold nymph would either surrender or be roasted or melted or whatever they do when they burn. End quote. Big Cat said disdainfully. Tang San snorted. End quote. Don't be so harsh. The descendants of these strong clans are different from you. Without real experience, no matter how strong their bloodline and their cultivation, they can and Oppo's truly utilize their own power. One of the purposes of the ancestral court holding this elite competition is probably to allow them to improve in these aspects. End quote. End quote. PFT. If this is the level here, then I really have confidence to make it into the top 3. End quote. Tang San warned him. End quote. Don and Oppo's be careless. There must be real strong contenders. Let and Oppo's keep watching. End quote. Perhaps Tang San and Oppo's luck was too good, or maybe his words carried power. In the next match on stage 1, their expressions turned serious. The match ended in 10 seconds. The winner was a dragon race contender, a true powerhouse. The match ended before they even saw what kind of dragon demon it was. It was pure power domination. From the moment it stepped on the stage, it began to gather power. When the judge announced the start of the match, it punched out, even creating a sonic boom. The opponent didn't and Oppo's even have a chance to dodge, getting blasted off the stage instantly. The match was over just like that. The 10 seconds included the time they spent walking onto the stage. Dragons. Tang San had no dealings with them since coming to this world, with one exception. This dragon demon didn't and Oppo's looked particularly tall, just over 2 meters, but when its power erupted, a terrifying aura like a landslide or tsunami truly shocked the entire audience. The Crystal Demon Emperor was also a dragon, But when Tang San faced them, they displayed abilities copied from other bloodlines and no dragon traits. But this one had fully demonstrated the domineering nature of the dragon clan. And quote, "What kind of dragon demon is that? They look smaller than the bear race." End quote, said Tang San puzzled. Big Cat said, and quote, "Dragons are a rather special race and the phoenix race is similar. Before they reach the 10th order, they are basically in human form all the time. But once they reach the god level, and they are very very likely to do that, it's completely different. They will have both dragon and human forms, and they are enormously powerful either way. Well, the dragon just now was probably from a lineage focused on pure strength." End quote. Actually, dragons have so many branches you can't even count them, though each clan usually has few members. Different dragon clans can interbreed, and it's hard to determine their attributes just from the way they look. Even worse, they might have a mutated bloodline. So unless it and Oppos, a well-known dragon powerhouse, you have no idea what you're fighting until they make their move. End quote. Tang San nodded. This explanation made sense, and it contributed to his understanding of this world. The competition continued, but from the matches they could see in Group 1, the most shocking was the dragon contestant who had appeared earlier. The one-move knockout was truly eye-catching. On the 3 stages, the pace of each match varied, but most were relatively quick. Even though all were 9th-tier powerhouses, the differences in strength due to racial and attribute differences were clear. That was how elimination matches worked. If you drew a powerful opponent, you might lose the match without even getting a chance to fight back. As the competition progressed, the gaps between opponents would become smaller. Those who made it to the end had to have some luck, but luck alone could never carry them all the way through. Only strength could. All the matches in Group 1 actually finished within half an hour, and Group 2 was already up. With 20 or so opponents per group, there would be 3 or 4 matches per stage at the most, and all matches until now had finished within minutes. Or well, seconds. The second group took the stage, and the battles were equally intense. Tang San carefully observed all the matches he could see from his position. This was his best opportunity to understand the abilities of the powerful races on the Demon Continent. One reason he had decided to participate in the competition with Big Cat before Mei Gongzi arrived. Observing the situation of the demon and nymph races and understanding his opponents better would greatly help in the future. His trip to the ancestral court was important not just for cultivation or purchasing items, but also to understand everything there. Finding a way for humans to survive under the oppression of these powerful races was not an easy task. Big Cat was also watching very seriously. He was an experienced warrior, and he didn't need Tang San's warning to know that understanding his opponents was a critical step toward victory. He was certainly not lacking arrogance, but he would never let it impact his way of fighting. The second group and Oppos' matches progressed a bit slower than the first groups, but after more than an hour, the third group was finally due to take the stage. As Group 3 and Oppos' number 6, Tang San would be the third pair to compete in the third group. Big Cat patted his shoulder. End quote, "Good luck." End quote. Tang San smiled and nodded. End quote. "Don and Oppos, Worry I and Oppos, I'll be waiting for you in the finals." End quote. He walked toward the competition area to prepare for his match. There was a passage from the waiting area to the competition area that led directly to the 3 stages. At the end of the passage, they waited for a stage to become available before proceeding to that stage for the match. As Tang San walked into the passage, there were several contestants ahead of him waiting for their matches. Since Group 3 had just started, the other contestants were naturally also from Group 3. These were the opponents Tang San would face in the individual competition over the next few days. Tang San wore the same outfit as Big Cat, a hooded cloak that covered his entire body. With a mask on his face, it was difficult to see his appearance or even determine his race, especially with many demons and nymphs looking more or less humanoid. At this moment there were 3 contestants already in the passage. The most eye-catching was a tall elephant demon. It was in humanoid form but towered over everyone else at over 7 meters tall. It had an extremely muscular body, a long trunk and large drooping ears. It stood there like a small mountain, exuding a strong sense of power. Tang San had once possessed the war stomp ability of the elephant race and was quite familiar with them, But the one before him was clearly not an ordinary elephant demon. Ordinary elephant demons only had a third-tier bloodline, with weaker ones even having a fourth-tier one. Also, their grayish hide was easy to recognize. This one, on the other hand, had 3 tusks protruding from each side of its lips. Moreover, it had brown skin and dark golden hair. A mammoth demon. This was a powerhouse from the Mammoth Demon clan. Among the demon emperors, the 7th ranked was the leader of this clan, the Golden Radiance Mammoth Demon Emperor. Therefore, the demon before Tang San undoubtedly had a first-tier bloodline. This mammoth demon exuded a calm demeanor. Its massive trunk was gently swaying. Its eyes were half closed as if it was meditating, and it was not even glancing at the other contestants who might be its opponents. The other 2 contestants near it, although not as tall as the mammoth demon, were still around 3 meters and over 2 meters tall, respectively. At this moment they hadn't opposed. T even noticed Tang San entering behind them, as their focus was entirely on the mammoth demon. Clearly, they hoped this mammoth demon wouldn't oppose T be their opponent in the upcoming match. What was the mammoth demon and oppose's number? This was what they were constantly calculating in their minds. But regardless, as long as they were in the same group and they kept moving ahead, they would have to face it sooner or later. Their gloomy expressions showed that they had no confidence against this mammoth demon. Tang San quietly walked near them, waiting for his turn. It was better to be ignored by potential opponents. He believed that with his luck, his upcoming match shouldn't oppose T be against this mammoth demon. Even if it didn't oppose T matter. He still had empty slots for bloodline imprints. If it turned out to be this one, its bloodline might suit him well. After all, this clan was known for their immense physical strength, which would greatly benefit his own physique. As for facing it sooner rather than later, that didn't oppose T make much of a difference. End quote. Group 3 number 3 and Group 3 number 4. Please enter the arena, end quote, came the voice of the staff. The mammoth demon instantly opened its eyes, dark golden light faintly flashing within them. The other 2 contestants immediately looked at their number plates to confirm their numbers. End quote. I oppose number 3, end quote, said one of the contestants. The other one, without hesitation, replied, end quote, I oppose number 4, end quote. The 2 contestants exchanged glances, and they both saw the joy deep in each other and oppose's eyes. Yes, their opponents were each other, not the powerful mammoth demon. Not far away, Tang San and oppose's face showed a look of surprise. What happened to my luck? How is my opponent this mammoth demon? I should be blessed with good fortune. No, that's not right. I used the polar domain and that one can have both good and bad outcomes. I already got the good luck of not drawing my companions as opponents. Could this be the inevitable misfortune from the domain? It seems that while the polar domain allows me to control fortune more precisely, it also comes with potential drawbacks. And since this isn't an oppose T an actual bloody battlefield, the bad luck has no place to dissipate. Tang San and oppose's mouth twitched. He had indeed gained a deeper understanding of his domain abilities, but at what cost? In this first match, he had to face a first-tier bloodline, and moreover the descendant of a current demon emperor. This was a bit of a pain. Even among first-tier bloodlines there were distinctions. A first-tier bloodline descended from a reigning emperor was definitely stronger than those without one. With the support of a demon or nymph emperor, they received better resources and had stronger bloodlines. At this moment, Tang San felt a scorching gaze directed at him. Looking up, he saw the towering mammoth demon intently staring at him. End quote, are you number 6? End quote, its voice was deep and muffled. Tang San and oppose's mouth twitched slightly. End quote, yes, that would be me. End quote. End quote, alright, I and oppose number 5. What race are you? End quote. This mammoth demon didn't oppose T seem as domineering as its appearance suggested. Instead, it looked somewhat simple-minded. Since the match was about to begin, there was no point in hiding it. End quote, human? End quote. Upon hearing Tang San and oppose's response, the mammoth demon didn't oppose T show any disdain or contempt. Instead, it looked at him with great interest and said, end quote, you and oppose, re a human? That's new. If you can compete here, then you must be very strong among your kind. Please go easy on me later." End quote. This time it was Tang San and Appo's turn to be surprised. Looking at the mammoth demon before him, his first thought was that this demon was definitely not just a simple-minded brute after all. Otherwise it wouldn't and Appo's have said such things. End quote. "You and Appo's too kind." End quote. Tang San replied calmly, not intending to converse much more. End quote. "Group 3 number 5 and Group 3 number 6, please enter the arena." End quote. The staff and Appo's announcement came again at that moment. The mammoth demon gave a simple-minded smile, swung its large trunk and said, end quote, "Well, it and Appo's our turn. Let and Appo's go." End quote. As it spoke, it gestured for Tang San to go first. Tang San nodded to it and without hesitation, walked into the competition area first. Under the guidance of the staff, they were led directly to stage 3. They entered from opposite sides, however, meaning they would start the battle 200 meters apart. As they took the stage, Tang San still wore his hood, so the audience couldn't and Appo's tell his race based on his appearance. But when the mammoth demon stepped onto the stage, the tens of thousands of spectators erupted into cheers. Of course, the cheers from the elephant clans were like a landslide, overwhelming and deafening. The Mammoth Demon clan, also known as the Golden Mammoths, were the only golden bloodline among all the emperors. The Golden Radiance Mammoth Demon Emperor was known as the top defensive powerhouse among his peers. The strength of this clan needed no explanation. Compared to the Mammoth Demon in front of him, Tang San and Appo's figure appeared much smaller. At this moment, Mei Gongzi was in another waiting area, her mind wandering around the process of passing the trial of inheritance not long ago. But when she heard end quote, Group 3 number 6 end quote, she subconsciously looked up and saw the two opponents. The waiting area she was in happened to have a view of stage 3. A mammoth demon? Azura has to face such an opponent? Oh, his luck is really bad. On the first day of the competition there wasn't an Appo's even a host to introduce the opponents. The Ancestral Court Elite competition was that rough. In the eyes of the Ancestral Court, there was no need to introduce people who might not even be there for half a minute. As for the audience, the most direct way to get to know the contestants was through their performance in the matches. But when this mammoth demon stepped onto the stage, it immediately became the favorite to advance from Group 3 in the minds of many spectators. And how could it not? The Ancestral Court had betting pools for the competition, but on the first day, the bets were mainly on the duration of the matches. The bets were placed on the total match time, in 10-minute intervals, starting from 4 hours and going up to 8 hours. Those who guessed correctly would receive 10 times their bet. In this way, the Ancestral Court naturally raked in a huge profit, but there were still countless people willing to participate in the betting. Many of the great nobles did that as well. This time prediction was obviously absolutely fair, because no one could possibly bribe all the contestants at the same time, and even if they did, there was no guarantee that things would work out the way they wanted. The fairness of this attracted many to participate in the betting pools. Tang San lifted his hood and took off his cloak, revealing the tight and agile outfit underneath. His mask remained on his face, and he stared intently at the mammoth demon across from him. 200 meters is a distance that wouldn't even allow ordinary people to see their opponent clearly. But Tang San could very clearly see the simple-minded smile on the face of the golden mammoth. It seemed to sense Tang San looking at it, and it even showed a slightly ingratiating expression, nodding at Tang San. Then Tang San saw its weapons. This golden mammoth had on each wrist a large bracelet, or rather bracer, because they looked more like wrist guards than like jewelry. With a flash of light from the two bracers, a heavy hammer appeared in each of its hands. How does one usually define a end quote, heavy hammer end quote? Certainly not as end quote, a hammer with the head 1 meter in diameter and the handle 4 meters long and as thick as a human thigh end quote. Yet here they were, and there were two of them. Tang San himself thought he was the wielder of a heavy hammer, but as it turned out, that wasn't a heavy hammer. These were heavy hammers. Even with Tang San and Appo's extensive experience, his face couldn't and Appo's help but twitch when he saw these hammers. This guy was intense. Just like for the previous matches, the judge didn't bother with introductions and formalities, and simply announced the start of the match. The golden mammoth and Appo's eyes lit up, and the ingratiating expression on its face instantly vanished, replaced by thirst for battle. It took a big step and charged directly toward Tang San. Boom, 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 boom. With each step it took, the entire arena seemed to tremble. Even more terrifying, its imposing aura was rising crazily. Its skin instantly turned dark gold, and light shot out from its eyes. The originally black hammers now shone golden, as if they were coated with a layer of gold. Tang San also moved, but instead of facing his opponent head-on, he turned and ran to the side. His light body moved swiftly as he tried to put some distance between him and his opponent. However, despite the golden mammoth and Appo's massive size, its speed was anything but what the size suggested. When it started running, it was like a massive boulder rolling down a steep mountain. It adjusted its direction slightly and continued to charge at Tang San, quickly closing the distance between them. End quote. A human? Hey, is that really a human? End quote. In the VIP seating area, a nobleman asked his companion. End quote. Yes, it does look like a human, but it and Appo's not clear which clan and Appo's vassal they belong to. How can a human compete? Check how they registered. End quote. End quote. What? The Sword Saint Great Demon Emperor and Appo's token? That and Appo's interesting. To gain the Sword Saint and Appo's recognition, this human must be exceptional. They should be skilled with a sword, but I don't and Appo's TC1 there. End quote. Tang San ran quickly along the edge of the arena. Although the golden mammoth was fast, he was not any slower. As his opponent tried to close the distance, Tang San immediately changed direction, forcing the golden mammoth to adjust its path to chase him again. As he started running back, the stands were filled with boos. The golden mammoth was also a bit frustrated. Tang San was very fast, and the arena was quite large. Catching a speed-type opponent on such a big stage was not easy. End quote. Roar. End quote. A deep growl came from the golden mammoth, and it started swinging its heavy hammers. Just when all the spectators thought the hammers would be thrown at Tang San, they smashed into each other instead. A deafening ring instantly spread throughout the ancestral court plaza. Weaker spectators in the stands felt dizzy from the noise. The impact was terrifying. Inside the arena, Tang San felt it even more intensely. The massive sound wave, accompanied by a strong shock wave, swept across his side of the arena almost instantly. There was no way to avoid it. Tang San felt his mind go blank for a moment, his ears ringing. His steps faltered, and he staggered unsteadily. He wasn't an Appo's god yet, and even if he regained his divine powers, he couldn't and Appo's know what abilities his opponent would use. This terrifying sonic attack caught him off guard, causing him some trouble. His internal energy circulated rapidly, and even his divine consciousness was slightly stirred. Even so, it took him a full second to recover most of his senses. In that brief time, the golden mammoth had already closed the distance to within 20 meters. The golden mammoth and Appo's massive body suddenly leaped high into the air. At the peak of its jump, its shadow completely covered Tang San. The pair of giant hammers descended like a dark cloud, smashing directly toward Tang San. The impact of these hammers was no less terrifying than Tang San and Appo's great Sumeru hammer unleashed with divine consciousness. The power of this attack truly showcased the might of a top-tier bloodline. Tang San now understood that this guy was a perfect example of yin and yang balancing each other. His cowardly speech was in complete contrast to his incredibly ruthless style of fighting. His opponent and Appo's aura had firmly locked onto him, making it impossible to simply run away at this moment. But at that moment, Tang San and Appo's eyes flashed with a purple-gold light, and two beams shot out from his pupils, purple demon eyes. The golden mammoth felt its sea of consciousness being fiercely struck, its mind going blank for an instant. However, the golden mammoth was not known as the ultimate fortress for nothing. It had formidable defenses not only physically but also mentally. In but an instant, the golden mammoth recovered from its daze, and the hammers continued their descent toward Tang San. The only difference from before was that the spiritual lock on Tang San had been disrupted by the purple demon eyes. Tang San did not panic at all. He lightly tapped the ground with his toes and gracefully soared upward. A bright platinum light burst from him. It was the lion tiger golden force. Instead of retreating, he advanced. Just before the hammers fell, he leaped toward the golden mammoth, slipping through the gap between the hammers. The lion tiger golden force opened a path for him, allowing him to avoid the direct impact of the hammers and get close to the golden mammoth. The opponent was certainly a great actor, but when it came to playing the pig to eat the tiger, Tang San himself was no slouch. All that running around the stage was nothing but an act. An opponent often revealed a flaw when launching their strongest attack. Having slipped through the hammers, Tang San was now right in front of the golden mammoth. His target was naturally the opponent and Oppo's throat, an invariably vulnerable spot. But at that moment, the golden mammoth suddenly puffed out its chest. Its strong pectoral muscles bulged outward, blocking Tang San and Oppo's upward path. This meant that Tang San and Oppo's attack would land on its chest and could not reach its throat or face. This type of defense was something Tang San had never seen before. However, he couldn't and Oppo's hesitate at such a critical moment. He instantly struck out with his right hand, hitting the golden mammoth and Oppo's chest. With a soft puff sound, Tang San used the momentum to bounce back. As the golden mammoth and Oppo's hammers landed and rebounded, Tang San leaped high in a diagonal direction, avoiding the hammers and Oppo's follow-up strike. From the audience and Oppo's perspective, it seemed as if Tang San deftly dodged the hammers, collided with the golden mammoth, and then rebounded to a distance. The colossal golden mammoth also landed, and the two sides separated once again. Is he just tickling the elephant? Ha ha ha. What the hell, the human doesn't and Oppo's even have a weapon? What and Oppo's the point of hitting him with your fists? Various noisy voices echoed in the audience, mostly complaining about the human's lack of power. However, the two combatants didn't and Oppo's see it that way at all. On the surface, the events on the stage seemed simple, but the real contest had begun with the twin hammer soundwave attack. The golden mammoth created an opening for itself with the soundwave impact, while Tang San used the purple demon eyes and Oppo's mental shock to buy himself some time. By forcibly cutting through the golden mammoth's attack with the lion tiger golden force, he managed to land an attack of his own. The golden mammoth and Oppo's massive physique was undoubtedly its greatest advantage, but its large size also made it less agile. It was indeed deceptively fast and nimble, but how could it compare to Tang San? Thus, Tang San exploited this weakness to land a hit. Given Tang San and Oppo's toughness, he naturally couldn't and Oppo's afford to be hit by those heavy hammers. As he himself had discovered in a similar arena, when a hammer collided with a head, the head was usually on the losing side. He didn't and Oppo's have a weapon to avoid hindering his agility. But was his bare-handed attack so easy to withstand? At this moment, the golden mammoth begged to disagree. Tang San and Oppo's seemingly light palm strike on its strong chest muscles initially felt like a mere tickle to the golden mammoth. Even if the opponent was a newly ascended demon or nymph king, unless they were particularly adept at attacking or wielding a divine weapon, harming it would be very difficult. How could this small human pose a threat? However, as Tang San rebounded and the golden mammoth landed, preparing to continue its attack, it sensed something amiss. Inside its chest, its mighty heart suddenly skipped a beat. Immediately after, the golden mammoth felt a tightening sensation in his chest. Heat and cold appeared almost simultaneously within it. The heart was invaded directly, and with that, the entire blood flow was impacted. The golden mammoth could no longer pursue Tang San and instead stood still, sucking in a harsh breath of air. Then the scorching and cold energies exploded, and its bloodline power was affected. The incredible pain made the golden mammoth and Oppo's face turn pale, and the golden color on its skin faded significantly. How is this possible? How did this happen? How did he do it? The golden mammoth and Oppo's eyes were filled with disbelief. Tang San was also observing it. Seeing its complexion change and its aura weaken instantly, he knew he had succeeded. Was that seemingly light palm strike really that easy to block? How could it be, when it was a condensation of Tang San and Oppo's entire strength? That palm strike carried 3 of his bloodline abilities: Peacock Transformation, Lion-Tiger Transformation, and Blue-Silver Emperor. The Lion-Tiger Transformation and Appo's function, or rather the Lion-Tiger Golden Force's function, was to devour a portion of the Golden Mammoth and Appo's formidable bloodline power, reinforcing its chest muscles, thus weakening its defense. Then, taking advantage of this opportunity, the spatial power of the Peacock Transformation manifested, injecting Tang San and Appo's subsequent attack directly inside the Golden Mammoth's chest through spatial transmission, and simply bypassing the thick and tough hide, flesh, and ribcage. As for the Blue-Silver Emperor, it had just absorbed the purest Yang and Yin energies from the Sunborn and Earthshade Nymph Emperors, respectively. Now it was no longer what it used to be. The hybrid plant bloodline had been largely replaced by these Yin and Yang energies. However, the Blue-Silver Emperor and Appo's remaining aura acted as a kind of adhesive, stabilizing the combination. When Tang San stimulated the Blue-Silver Emperor imprint, these Yin and Yang energies would reinforce whatever attack he used. This time he used spatial transmission to shift some pure Yin and Yang energy into his opponent's body. The Golden Mammoth naturally didn't have the same abilities as Tang San, who could forcibly balance the Yin and Yang energies with luck, and the Blue-Silver Emperor. Therefore, the extremely violent Yang and Yin energies rampaged in its heart. Although these 2 streams of energy Waren and Appo's very strong, they were of extreme attributes. If they had acted elsewhere, the Golden Mammoth could have withstood them with its strong defense, but in the heart the impact was naturally significant. Thus, Tang San and Appo's seemingly light palm strike could be accurately called Peacock Lion Tiger Yin Yang Palm, or maybe the Triple Transformation Palm. Tang San only had some basic control over the Yin and Yang energies, and the imprint and Appo's power wasn't Appo's all that great. However, 2 of his bloodline imprints came from genuine first-tier bloodlines, and his Blue-Silver Emperor was now also around that level. The Golden Mammoth and Appo's defense was indeed ridiculous. Had it been an ordinary demon or nymph instead, then even without the Yin-Yang energy, just the domineering Lion-Tiger Golden Force teleported directly inside their heart would be enough to kill them on the spot. Tang San didn't, and Appo's seized the opportunity to exterminate his fallen opponent. This palm strike had exhausted him considerably. The Yin and Yang energies had temporarily lost balance due to the output, and he needed to stabilize them. He couldn't, and Appo's use them again for the time being. The Yin and Yang energies he had previously gathered were limited. Although he had begun absorbing these energies from the air through the imprint, extremely pure Yin and Yang energies were scarcely found in ordinary spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Increasing his reserves was bound to be a painfully slow process. With things being as they were, it was already impressive if he could use the Triple Transformation Palm once a day. However, for today and Appo's battle, this palm strike was basically enough. Tang San placed his hands behind his back and silently observed the Golden Mammoth before him. He wanted to see if its defense would allow it to continue the fight. End quote. Clang. End quote. One heavy hammer fell to the ground, followed by the other. The Golden Mammoth clutched its chest with both hands and knelt on one knee, gasping heavily. The dark golden light on its skin flickered, its face turned pale, and large beads of sweat rolled down from its forehead. This sudden change immediately caused the noisy crowd to quiet down. Even though the 7-meter-tall Golden Mammoth knelt down, its figure was still much larger than Tang San and Appo's. Yet at this moment, the tiny little human on the stage appeared titanically grand in the eyes of all the spectators. How could this be possible? In one move, the Golden Mammoth lost its combat capability? Wasn't Appo's this one of the favorites to advance? At this moment, Tang San moved, swiftly charging toward the Golden Mammoth. The Golden Mammoth sensed his approach and instinctively reached out to grab Tang San, but another wave of intense throbbing hit its chest. The stimulation from the yin-yang energy made it feel as if its heart was being crushed by an iron grip, and its strength instantly drained away. Tang San, using the Ghost Shadow Perplexing track, slipped directly through its thick arms and reached its front. His right hand pressed on its forehead, and his voice, carrying spiritual power, sounded in its ears. End quote. Admit defeat. End quote. End quote. I, end quote, Feeling the steady and cold hand on its forehead, the golden mammoth raised its head to look at Tang San. A trace of reluctance flashing in its eyes, but it was quickly replaced by fear. If the opponent could channel energy into its heart, why couldn't and Appos? He do the same to its brain? And if that strange energy entered its brain, then whatever defenses it had weren't worth a single demon's hard coin. It lowered its head dejectedly. End quote. I admit defeat. End quote. The referee thus announced the end of the match. End quote. Number 6 of Group 3 wins. End quote. This was undoubtedly a result no one had anticipated. A weak human actually defeated the powerful golden mammoth. How unbelievable was that? Yet, the truth was before everyone in Appos' eyes. Unless the golden mammoth was pretending and deliberately lost, which was simply unthinkable, what kind of power did this human possess? Tang San actually didn't in Appos' want to defeat his opponent so conspicuously. It attracted too much attention. But he knew his own situation. This golden mammoth definitely had the strength to challenge a demon king level opponent. Given its impressive defense, Tang San had to achieve a surprise victory, and he only had that one chance. If he failed, then with his current strength, he wouldn't have stood a chance of winning unless he used his divine consciousness, which he had to avoid at all costs. Between activating his divine consciousness and achieving a conspicuously swift victory, he had immediately chosen the latter. At least no one could tell what ability he had used. End quote. Donandapos T move Iandapos. LL heal you end quote. Tang San said in a low voice. As he spoke, he moved his right hand from the golden mammoth and Appos' forehead to its shoulder, circulating his internal energy while activating the blue-silver emperor and peacock demon transformations simultaneously. He had to do this. Without the peacock transformation he couldn't and Appos' affect the internal areas of the opponent and Appos' body. The entangled yin and yang energies in the golden mammoth and Appos' heart were finally drawn out and returned to Tang San and Appos' body. This wasn't an Appos' because Tang San was particularly kind and felt like healing his opponent was a virtue. One reason was to retrieve his precious yin and yang energies to restore his triple transformation palm. The other reason was to avoid leaving traces that could reveal his abilities. Without the influence of the yin and yang energies, the golden mammoth and Appos' powerful body allowed it to recover almost instantly. Its heart pumped blood vigorously, restoring its mobility. Apart from being slightly weakened, it was now fine. End quote. Can you tell me what ability you used just now? End quote. It asked, standing up and retrieving its pair of hammers. Tang San shrugged and said, end quote, no comment. End quote. Then he turned and walked off the stage. He couldn't and Appos' explained the attack he had just used, as it was something he had come up with on the spot. His greatest strength lay in having multiple bloodlines, and being able to combine these bloodline powers was crucial to enhancing his combat effectiveness. Moreover, in the competition he couldn't and Appos' let the observing expert see through him, nor let his opponents discover what had happened. It required a high level of concealment, so how could he explain it just because he was asked to? The golden mammoth strode after him, its face once again showing a goofy smile. End quote. My name is Mao Wenwu, what and Appos' your name? End quote. Before the match it hadn't and Appos' even asked Tang San and Appos' name. Now that it had lost, it felt that introductions were warranted. Tang San obviously did not intend to be honest, but he did feel like the question warranted an answer, so he chose to reveal his alter ego. End quote. I am Azura. End quote. Only at this moment did the audience erupt in an uproar, with various boos rising and falling. This battle seemed too strange, and for a time, the roaring voices of hundreds of thousands of Ancestor Court citizens made the entire Ancestor Court plaza extremely noisy. Watching Tang San and Appos' quickly departing figure, Mao Wenwu and Appos' expression became quite interesting. It originally intended to play the role of a pig in order to eat a tiger, yet it had unexpectedly become a proper pig. Although it hadn't and Appos' expected to get a top spot anyway, it had believed advancing from the group stage shouldn't and Appos' be difficult. To its dismay, its journey to the top had ended before the first step was even taken. The key point was that the loss seemed too inexplicable. Now that the yin and yang energies in its body had disappeared, it quickly returned to its normal state, as if it hadn't been attacked at all. Even to the contender, the match seemed fixed. So how the hell was it supposed to explain this when it went back home? Damn, won't Grandpa beat me to death? This was a complete failure. Tang San, of course, had greater concerns than what Mao Wenwu was thinking. After quickly leaving the competition stage, he immediately returned to the original waiting area to wait quietly. In the waiting area where he was, only the matches on the first platform were visible. Therefore, despite the numerous boos in the arena, they didn't know what had happened on the third platform, nor did they know that Tang San had already defeated a strong opponent. Big Cat approached Tang San and asked in a low voice, "How did it go?" Tang San pulled him to an inconspicuous corner of the waiting area and then whispered, "I won." He didn't elaborate on the nature of his opponent, still reflecting on the process of his own palm attack. This was the first time he had tried to combine several bloodline abilities together, and he didn't expect the result to be so effective. However, without the dominating power of the yin-yang energy, relying solely on the lion-tiger transformation and peacock transformation, it would have been difficult to break through the opponent and oppo's defense. The golden mammoth Mao Wenwu had a cultivation close to the peak of the ninth order, with plenty of combat experience and powerful techniques. Tang San's victory could be considered rather surprising. The boos from the stands quickly dissipated as the competition continued and the next contestants began their matches. The audience and oppo's attention naturally shifted. Tang San fell into deep thought about the sudden issue with the polar luck domain and the fusion of various bloodline abilities. These were important aspects he needed to consider for his future cultivation. Breaking through to the god level was challenging and would inevitably take some time. Thus, before reaching the 10th order, he needed to find alternative methods to truly contend with god-level powerhouses, and those alternative methods would inevitably involve short and massive bursts of energy. After watching Big Cat and Mei Gongzi and Oppo's matches today, he planned to revisit the Sunborn Sacred Mountain and Earthshade Sacred Mountain. Condensing yin-yang energy in these two places would be much faster than cultivating on his own. If he could enhance the yin-yang energy to a certain extent, the power of his blue-silver emperor imprint would greatly increase. More importantly, this yin-yang energy could be added to any other ability, serving as an auxiliary power. And what a formidable auxiliary power it was. Not even the tough physique of a golden mammoth could withstand it. This energy concentrated the core abilities of two top nymph emperors, and with the adjustment from the polar luck domain, it could become a powerful trump card, almost on par with the domain itself. Tang San had to restrain his own excitement at this thought. No rush, take it slow. In the process of cultivating this yin-yang energy, he couldn't let the two nymph emperors discover him, so he could only improve himself slowly and steadily. The competition progressed quickly, with evenly matched situations being rather rare in the first round. In a knockout tournament, every contestant treated each match as if it were their last because, well, it could be. They all fought at full power, resulting in quick battles. At one point, Big Cat and Oppo's voice interrupted Tang San and Oppo's contemplation of his own abilities. Good luck, Tang San said, clenching his fist and waving it toward Big Cat. I will. Big Cat took a deep breath, his eyes instantly brightening and strode out. Compared to Tang San, Big Cat had experienced far more. From the time he was born, he was constantly told by his clan members that they were cursed. Among his peers, he was the strongest, displaying remarkable talent from a very young age. Yet the Lion-Tiger clan was ostracized and resources were extremely limited. Despite the elders and Oppo's care, even basic sustenance was hard to come by. As he grew older, his power increased day by day. Gradually, he began to feel the problems with his bloodline. Each time his bloodline powers clashed, he would experience unbearable pain. The elders scrimped and saved to buy natural treasures to supplement his life force, helping him endure and suppress the pain caused by the bloodline conflict. Even so, his strength continued to grow rapidly. Later, by chance, the young Big Cat learned that he could earn money at the Great Beast Fighting Arena, so he resolutely went there. The arena saw that he was a rare lion tiger, which was a great selling point, and naturally, let him participate without hesitation, even offering him a good deal. With his formidable strength, Big Cat gradually made a name for himself in the arena. The first time he killed an opponent, he was actually terrified, but thinking of the many people in his clan who needed money to live, he hardened his heart. He didn't oppose. Know how many times he had been through life and death situations, nor how many scars he had accumulated. His strength improved day by day, and he eventually became an invincible presence in Cali City's great beast fighting arena. In order to earn more money, he even went as far as helping those nobles by throwing matches, just to buy more natural treasures to sustain his clan members and Oppo's lives. However, his childhood sweetheart and Oppo's bloodline conflict was particularly severe, reaching a point where even treasure herbs and fruits could not suppress it. His heart was full of despair, and at the bottom of that despair resentment brewed. He hated everything in this world. He hated that he was cursed by the heavens, that life was so difficult for him even though he was working so hard. Until he met Azura, the one who saved his life, the lives of his entire clan, and the life of his beloved. When Azura resolved all his worries and even allowed his bloodline to fully integrate, Big Cat had already made up his mind. No matter if he had to be a slave or a servant in the future, he would repay this great benefactor. But Azura did not enslave him. Instead, he treated him as a friend and gave him the opportunity to lead the Lion Tiger clan in its rise. At this moment, his heart no longer harbored resentment, but was filled with unparalleled and unprecedented fighting spirit. He no longer fought for survival but for the Lion Tiger clan and his own honor. He no longer needed to feign civility with those nobles. He only needed to unleash his battle intent and defeat all opponents in his way. Big Cat was assigned to stage 1. As he stepped onto the stage, every step was firm and powerful. During his ascent, he removed his hooded cloak and tossed it aside, revealing his striped fur, strong physique, and facial features with both lion and tiger characteristics, all showcasing his unique heritage. He stood tall, determined to show all spectators whether the Lion Tiger clan was truly cursed or genuinely powerful. Lion Tiger clan? As they watched him step onto the competition stage, the nobles from the lion race and the tiger race in the VIP seats couldn't and Oppo's help but stand up in shock. Since when could the Lion Tiger clan participate in the ancestral court elite competition? How did he get here? Is he a noble? It and Oppo's a disgrace. A strong tiger demon growled with anger in his eyes. How can these cursed beings be allowed into the ancestral court? This will bring a curse upon our tiger race. The members of both races present all started yelling in anger. However, Big Cat was already on stage, and his participation was set in stone. At this moment, Big Cat and Oppo's opponent also stepped onto the stage. It was about 2 meters tall, covered in golden fur, and had exceptionally long arms. A shiny silver staff was in its hand, blending with its golden fur to create a dazzling brilliance. It was a golden silk demon ape, a top branch of the ape race and a second-tier bloodline. The golden silk demon apes were one of the most perfect combinations of speed and strength. Moreover, it was innately gifted with exceptionally high spiritual power. The golden silk demon apes even had a third vertical eye on its forehead, which allowed it to use powerful spiritual attacks. The golden silk demon ape clan had always been dominant among the ape race. Unfortunately, it had never produced a demon emperor, so it had always remained a second-tier bloodline. Big Cat looked coldly at his opponent, a heavy sword already in his grasp. Who the opponent was and what clan it belonged to didn't and Oppo's mattered to him. All that mattered was that he had to win, so he would win. The golden silk demon ape bared its teeth at him, revealing its fangs, but its eyes showed disdain. The two opponents were on opposite sides of the stage, far apart, making any verbal exchange rather difficult. With the referee and Oppo's announcement, Big Cat and Oppo's first match in the Ancestral Court Elite competition officially began. Both sides launched their attacks almost simultaneously. The golden silk demon ape propped itself up with its long staff and leaped into the air. Its speed was incredibly fast, like a shooting star shooting across the arena, swiftly charging toward Big Cat. The gold and silver intertwined, looking extremely dazzling. As it ran, its muscles began to swell, and it transformed from a humanoid into a giant ape. In an instant, it swelled to a height of 4 meters, its speed increased dramatically, and the long staff in its hand grew larger to match its physique. With an imposing aura, it charged straight at Big Cat. Big Cat moved simultaneously with his opponent, dragging his heavy sword with his right hand and striding toward the enemy. His eyes were cold, and a blazing white flame ignited instantly. With each step, the flames on his being intensified, and his aura surged. His already strong body became even more imposing, swelling up as well. Bloodline power surged. The golden silken demon ape raised the staff high above its head with both hands. At the same time, the vertical eye on its forehead suddenly opened, ready to launch a spiritual attack. At that moment, Big Cat burst out with a furious roar. End quote. Get lost. End quote. The blazing golden flames around his body suddenly turned platinum, condensing into a giant lion-tiger head that emitted a terrifying roar. Facing this roar, the vertical pupil of the golden silken demon ape, which had just opened, couldn't and oppose to release its spiritual power due to sheer intimidation. Its bloodline surged, and even as a second-tier bloodline being, it suddenly felt a strong sense of fear. The power of its bloodline scattered. The golden light radiating from its entire body was greatly diminished, and the force with which it swung its staff weakened. Big Cat and Oppo's right hand swiftly lifted the heavy sword upward. With his rich combat experience, he certainly wouldn't miss such an opportunity. The long staff fell, colliding with the heavy sword, creating a deafening boom. In the next moment, under the spectators and Oppo's shocked gazes, the clearly extraordinary silver long staff was directly sent flying. The golden glow on the golden silken demon ape dimmed almost completely, and it was knocked backward. Big Cat stepped forward with full force, and the lion-tiger golden astral and Oppo's platinum light grew even brighter. At the moment of collision, he had already absorbed part of the opponent and Oppo's power, which had now completely transformed into his strength. The sword in his hand was as heavy as it was massive, yet it appeared as light as a feather as it slashed down fiercely. A platinum sword light flashed through the air, and at that moment time seemed to freeze. The golden silken demon ape, which had been sent flying, suddenly paused in mid-air. Then its golden body abruptly exploded into countless fragments, scattering in all directions. Blood and entrails splattered, creating a rain of blood in the sky. The stands erupted in an uproar. This was the first death in Today and Oppo's competition so far. After all, this was the Ancestral Court Elite competition, and the participants were elite powerhouses from various powerful clans. Everyone gave everyone else some face, as this was just a competition. Determining victory or defeat rarely involved lethal force. But Big Cat had not only killed his opponent, he had done so in a truly brutal manner, as if he was venting deep-seated grievances accumulated over the years. The lion and tiger demons in the stands were wide-eyed, completely unable to believe what they were seeing. On the competition stage, Big Cat acted as if nothing had happened. He strode over to the silver staff that had been sent flying and picked it up. It was his trophy after all. A child from a poor family would never waste anything. With one hand dragging his heavy sword and the other holding the silver staff, he casually walked off the competition stage. The Ancestral Court Elite competition had no rule against killing opponents. As a matter of fact, it had no rule against anything apart from outside interference. Moreover, the world of the demons and nymphs was a world where the strong were revered. Being able to kill an opponent, especially in an official competition, was a testament to one and Oppo's skill. In an instant, a powerful golden silk demon ape was killed. What did this mean? Most of the spectators present had already figured it out. In the VIP seats, a lion demon noble with golden fur looked shocked. Have they resolved the bloodline conflict? The power he used has never appeared before. Is this the result of a true fusion and evolution? Have the Lion-Tiger clan successfully fused their bloodlines? Is the result a first-tier bloodline? With this fierce and ruthless battle, Big Cat announced to all the lion and tiger demons present that he, the Lion-Tiger Sword Saint, a descendant of the Lion-Tiger clan, had arrived. When he stepped off the competition stage and returned to the waiting area, the contestants who had watched the battle looked at him differently. An unseen yet fearsome aura seemed to emanate from Big Cat. Tang San had watched the entire battle. He had to admit that, purely from the perspective of the Lion-Tiger Golden Force, Big Cat and Appo's was stronger than his own. Whether in strength or in application, Big Cat had perfectly mastered this bloodline power. Indeed, he was a born warrior. The combat experience he had gained from hundreds of life-and-death battles was fully displayed in this fight, not allowing the golden silken demon ape to use its best abilities. That lion-tiger roar had forcibly interrupted the spiritual attack of the golden silk demon ape and exerted a powerful suppression. Well, the lion-tiger clan had a natural bloodline suppression over the ape race, and many other races for that matter. They were natural predators after all. The moment that roar was unleashed, the battle and Appo's outcome was already decided. Killing the opponent was out of pure habit, but it was also to intimidate others. Big Cat walked over and handed the long silver staff to Azura. And quote, "Here, I got you a little gift." End quote. Tang San didn't stand on ceremony and directly stored it in his storage ring. The pair finally caught the attention of the other contestants around them. For a moment, many gazes were directed their way. End quote. "Are we leaving now, or are we waiting for your girlfriend to finish her match?" End quote. Big Cat asked telepathically. Tang San replied, end quote, "You can head back if you want. I and Appo's I'll wait for her to finish." End quote. End quote. "I and Appo's I'll stay with you," end quote, Big Cat said. At this moment, his emotions were still surging. This was the ancestral court, the core of the demon continent. Not only had he defeated his opponent in such a significant competition, but he had also killed it in a brutal and domineering manner. He had showcased the Lion-Tiger Golden Force to all the demon and nymph clans for the first time, bringing his clan in the limelight as the proud and mighty warriors they were. How could his mood be calm? Moreover, this was just the beginning. In the upcoming matches, no matter his opponents, he would prove with his strength and fighting spirit, and most importantly, he would prove that the Lion-Tiger clan was not cursed by the heavens. The competition was thrilling, with many powerful contestants appearing. However, at this point of the competition, if a contestant with a second-tier bloodline faced one with a first-tier, they were almost certain to lose. This was the difference in bloodline power. Only in rare cases, where there was an attribute advantage and the second-tier bloodline contestant had powerful abilities in combat power, was there a chance of winning. Quite obviously, there were more second-tier bloodline contestants, with first-tier bloodlines making up only about 40%. But after today in Appo's first round of eliminations, the number of second-tier bloodline contestants would be significantly reduced. And in another round or two, there might not be any second-tier bloodline contestants left in the competition. Tang San was feeling a bit nervous, and his view, Mei Gongzi had just reached the 9th order, far from the peak 9th order. Although she had a first-tier bloodline, if she faced a strong opponent of the same tier, she might not be able to defeat them. He didn't, and Appo's know how much Mei Gongzi and Appo's cultivation had improved during her more than a year of seclusion. As the saying goes, concern leads to confusion. He cared about her, and this caused him to be a bit unsettled now. After all, this was not a doubles match, so he couldn't and Appo's be on the field to help her. Finally, the matches for Group 9 began. Mei Gongzi and Appo's number was 3, so she appeared in the second round of Group 9. Her match was on Stage 2. Tang San quickly left his own waiting area and moved to another waiting area where he could see Stage 2, ready to watch Mei Gongzi and Appo's match. He was even more nervous now than when he was competing himself. End quote. Group 9, number 3 versus number 4. Please step onto the stage. End quote. Mei Gongzi strolled onto the stage. As she ascended, her jet-black hair turned peacock blue, revealing her identity as a member of the Peacock Demon Clan. This was according to an instruction from the Peacock Great Demon King, to hide her human bloodline as much as possible during the competition. After all, the only visible difference between the Peacock Demon Clan and humans was their hair color. By the time she exited seclusion, Mei Gongzi had utterly transformed from a girl into a young woman. Her stunning face looked even fairer against her peacock blue hair, and her cold expression gave her an ethereal quality. Female contestants were already rare, and even rarer were those as stunning as Mei Gongzi. The powerful demon and nymph clans mostly had humanoid appearances, and their aesthetic senses were quite similar, apart from the focus on sheer fighting power. Naturally, many spectators were captivated by Mei Gongzi and Appo's unparalleled beauty. Tang San took a deep breath, trying to calm his nerves while quietly preparing to intervene if necessary. What if Mei Gongzi encounters an opponent as bloodthirsty as Big Cat? Concern leads to confusion indeed. Mei Gongzi had a space attribute bloodline, so how could others harm her so easily? Maybe they weren't the strongest when it came to sheer attack and defense, but in terms of evasion skills, the Peacock Demon clan was definitely at the top among all the demon clans. At this moment, Mei Gongzi and Appo's opponent also stepped onto the stage. In this arena where female contestants were rare, Mei Gongzi and Appo's opponent was also coincidentally a female. She had an incredibly alluring figure. She was slightly taller than Mei Gongzi and had curves in all the right places. Her golden hair flowed in large waves down her back, and her golden red eyes had a captivating charm. She had a charming smile on her pretty face and even had a finger in her mouth. Indeed, she was a representative of the golden bloodline of the fox race. Although not a first-tier bloodline like the celestial fox clans, golden foxes were still considered strong among the second-tier bloodlines. Seeing that Mei Gongzi and Appo's opponent had a second-tier bloodline, Tang San immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Although Mei Gongzi had just reached the 9th order, dealing with a second-tier bloodline Shuden and Appo's be too much of a problem. The referee announced, and quote, "Begin the match." End quote. The next moment, the female contestant from the Golden Fox shimmered and suddenly split into two identical figures, making it impossible to distinguish the real from the fake. This was undoubtedly a type of illusion. Tang San quickly recalled the innate abilities of the Golden Fox that he had learned at Redemption Academy. The Golden Fox clan had few members, just like most golden bloodlines but very much unlike other fox demon clans. Their numbers were so few that they could be compared to the Celestial Fox clan, so their public appearances were equally rare. The strength of this lineage was in its three innate abilities: speed, illusion, and charm. Aside from the Celestial Fox clan, which controlled fate, they were clearly the strongest of the fox demons. Most fox demons were not skilled in combat, but the Golden Fox clan was an exception. They were excellent assassins and had strong combat abilities, especially in one-on-one situations or complex environments. At this moment, the Golden Fox had already used her high-level illusion ability to create a perfectly identical clone. Tang San and Appo's Crimson Fox girls, though skilled in illusions, did not yet have this capability. The two figures split again, becoming four. The four golden figures simultaneously shot toward Mei Gongzi like four beams of golden light. Mei Gongzi raised her right hand, a peacock feather silently appearing in her grasp. Then she closed her eyes. Yes, she simply closed her eyes as if she didn't and Appo's even deign to look at her opponent. The four golden figures quickly approached, accelerating and intertwining when they were less than 20 meters from Mei Gongzi. At that moment, Mei Gongzi moved. Her graceful body spun in place, and a pair of peacock wings unfurled behind her, as if she was dancing. Circles of silver light patterns expanded outward, and the peacock crown that Tang San had seen before appeared on her head. The dazzling crown highlighted her noble status. The silver light patterns emitted by the peacock plume spread in all directions. Where the light patterns passed, space seemed to split and overlap, no longer a complete whole but a number of segments. For a moment, everything around her became bizarre and fantastical. Space severing. Tang San almost blurted out. Mei Gongzi had cut space into pieces, leaving only the area surrounding her intact. The four golden figures about to rush toward her suddenly stopped, feeling the threat of the fractured space and not daring to advance further. But unlike the golden figures, the silver light patterns did not stop. They intersected and flew out, enveloping the four golden figures. The seemingly delicate silver lines were in fact fracture lines in space. The Golden Fox contestant didn't and Appo's dare to even touch them, and she hastily retreated. But in the next instant, she felt space shift behind her. When she turned around, she saw that silver light patterns had appeared behind her at some point, blocking her retreat. The silver light patterns gradually closed in, enveloping a large area of space around them, making it impossible for the conjured figures to move forward or retreat. The golden fox excelled in speed, illusion, and charm. But her luck was terrible today. Facing another female, her ability to charm the opponent was greatly reduced. With the space shattered, neither side could even see the other directly, making illusion attacks useless. Lastly, her physical strength could not withstand the attacks of space severing, so her speed meant nothing whatsoever under such a large-scale space blockade. End quote, I surrender. End quote, she didn't and oppose. T want to die and immediately screamed when she saw she couldn't and oppose. T fight back. The silver light patterns silently retracted, finally merging into the peacock plume. Meanwhile, at some point, Mei Gongzi had appeared less than 5 meters behind her. The peacock plume feather lightly quivered, causing layers of distorted ripples in the surrounding space. With a flash of silver light, she vanished without a trace. Even Tang San was left dumbfounded. What more than the other spectators? Tang San sensed that Mei Gongzi had perfectly integrated into space itself. Under her control, the entire space around the stage was like obedient building blocks, arranged and combined at will. The gaps between each small bit of space were her best attack methods. Compared to the sheer magnitude of her mastery, her opponent's attacks were nothing more than a child's play. Has she really become this strong? How could she improve this much in just a year of seclusion? Mei Gongzi silently appeared in the waiting area and sent a message to Azura via communicator. Azura, the match is over. I and Oppose am going out now. End quote. Okay, end quote. Tang San replied. He had originally planned to ask Mei Gongzi to practice for their doubles battle, but given the strength she had displayed today, it seemed unnecessary. Mei Gongzi walked out of the waiting area under the strange gazes of others, her thoughts returning to the moment of her family and Oppo's bloodline inheritance test. The Peacock Great Demon King had called her back in advance upon hearing that the Ancestral Court Elite Tournament was to be held. He hoped that if she could pass the clan inheritance test, she could participate in this competition and make a name for herself. After all, she had human blood, and to inherit the position and become the next clan leader, she needed the Ancestral Court and Oppo's approval. Strength had always been the quintessential way to gain recognition, so that was the way to go now as well. Therefore, her inheritance test came early. The cave was so dark that one couldn't and Oppo's see their own hands, but Mei Gongzi was not hurrying to explore. Although she was young, she always had a calm temperament. Her mother had taught her since childhood that she was to remain calm no matter the situation, as only in a calm state could she handle any crisis. Since she couldn't and Oppo's she closed her eyes and silently focused on sensing the spatial fluctuations around her. The Peacock Demon Clan and Oppo's inheritance test unquestionably had to do with space manipulation. There were no ifs and buts. At the same time, she quietly clasped the fortune stone in her hand. This fortune stone could enhance her luck, or so Azura had told her. Holding the fortune stone, she couldn't and Oppo's help but think of the masked face. Why wouldn't and Oppo's he let me see his true face? What is he hiding? As her thoughts became chaotic, she suddenly felt the space around her tremble slightly. Even though her eyes were closed, everything suddenly became bright. She was surprised to find herself in a silver-lit space. It was like an altar surrounded by an endless void. In the center of the silver circular altar, Mei Gongzi felt the air around her seem viscous. At this moment, even making the slightest movement seemed excruciatingly difficult. Suddenly, her whole body relaxed, and the altar beneath her feet erupted with silver light, shooting out like a volcanic eruption. These silver rays passed through her body, making her feel as if she had become translucent. Then these silver lights shot toward the endless night sky, turning into large swathes of silver brilliance. Gradually, the altar beneath her feet began to darken, revealing the pitch-black night sky, and she felt as if she were floating in it. In the distance, the boundless starry sky soaring in this dark world brought her an indescribable sense of fear. At this moment, a point of silver light in the distance suddenly enlarged, seemingly shooting toward her. Mei Gongzi was startled for a moment, instinctively dodging to the side. A silver line almost grazed her body as it flew past. The silver line that flew past silently disappeared, reappearing under Mei Gongzi and Oppo's feet. It was a spatial attack, and if it had hit her, it could have sliced her body apart. The spatial power she had dodged reassembled under her feet, seemingly becoming part of the previous altar. Before she could think more, 2 more silver rays shot toward her. Mei Gongzi and Appo's silhouette flickered as she dodged again. The 2 silver rays swept through the void, disappeared and reappeared, merging back into the altar beneath her feet. At this moment she suddenly understood what her test was. The altar beneath her feet was woven from countless strands of spatial power. Once she had appeared, these strands of spatial power had scattered. Now they were returning, and she had to avoid the assault of spatial power to complete this test. But there were thousands of strands of spatial power that had scattered earlier. 4 silver rays flew toward her at this moment, forming a grid pattern. Mei Gongzi leaped up, passing through the center. The 4 silver lights disappeared, reappeared, and merged into the altar beneath her feet. This time, there was no more interval between the attacks. 8 more silver rays appeared almost immediately, shooting in from all directions. At that moment Mei Gongzi Kuden and Appo's helped but recall the Peacock Great Demon King and Appo's words before the test, just one sentence, end quote. Step on the yellow silk and dance the celestial dance, end quote. She began to dance gracefully in the next instant, her lithe body flickering as she slipped through the gaps between the silver lights. The silver lights fell and merged into the altar. But more silver rays were already shooting toward her. Mei Gongzi had to fully extend her spiritual power, so she started dancing the celestial dance, which she had just begun to master. She tightly held the fortune stone in her hand, continuously weaving through the silver rays that could easily slice through her. Perhaps being hit by the silver rays would and Appo's kill her, but it would most certainly cause her to fail this inheritance test. Before entering, the Peacock Great Demon King had told her that there was only one chance for the test, which would differ based on one and Appo's cultivation level. She was at the peak of the 8th order, not yet at the 9th, but she had already reached a certain level of proficiency with the celestial dance. This was the perfect time to take the test. Whether she could indeed pass depended on her. Under the immense pressure, the celestial dance seemed to come naturally. Mei Gongzi and Appo's dance became faster and faster as she moved through the increasingly dense spatial rifts like a weaver's shuttle. The silver light under her feet grew increasingly intense, making her figure look even more dazzling and captivating. Gradually, Mei Gongzi began to feel exhausted. First, it was her spiritual power. She had to extend her spiritual power to find those tiny gaps after all. Not only that, but it was impacted by the cracks in space, so it was consumed at an even higher rate. Then, her body started to lag behind her senses due to physical fatigue. Yet, the spatial rifts around her showed no signs of decreasing. She didn't and Appo's even know how many attacks she had dodged. But since the spatial rift attacks hadn't and Appo's ended, she hadn't and Appo's passed the test yet. She could only grit her teeth and persist. These attacks were genuinely terrifying. She had even had strands of her hair cut off, and the sensation of these close brushes with death made shivers run down her spine, and at the same time made her even more awake and alert. But her body and Appo's limits were approaching. No matter how hard she tried or how much she pushed her potential, the fear of death was there. At that moment, a light flickered in her other hand. The spatial rifts speeding toward her suddenly slowed down. The silver net of spatial rifts was so dense that the whole world around her looked like a shattered window, as if the mere touch of a finger would cause pieces of it to fall. The slowed speed allowed Mei Gongzi to truly see for the first time what she had been dodging. Most of the altar beneath her feet was now lit up. She stepped along the peculiar rhythm of the celestial dance, weaving through the spatial rifts that seemed to cut through the entire world. Despite the density of the rifts, the reduced speed made it much easier for her. A crystal-clear mirror glowed with a magical light in her hand, emitting a soft halo that caused everything around it to slow down. If a power in this world could influence space, it would undoubtedly be time. The two concepts were equally profound and mysterious, and the two powers could influence each other in a way inaccessible to other types of power. The crystal mirror was the Crystal Demon Emperor's token, imprinted with the Chrono Croc bloodline that Tang San had decided to place in it after some deliberation. He was well aware of the profundities of space and time, and he naturally expected that a Peacock Demon clan's inheritance test would involve space manipulation, so he thought that the power of time would be the best assistance to Mei Gongzi. And indeed, at this critical moment, it proved to be of immense help to her, ensuring her survival, or at least allowing her to continue with the test, which was indeed tied to her survival as well. Strands of silver light silently imprinted on the altar beneath her feet, making the altar and Apo's glow brighter and brighter. The dazzling light filled the surrounding space with strange fluctuations. The Chronocroc and Apo's cloned bloodline ability didn't last very long, but it was enough for Mei Gongzi. After the densest spatial rifts passed, only some scattered spatial fluctuations remained. She used the slowed time to catch her breath, readjusted, and started dancing again. The brief slowdown in time allowed her to process her new understanding of the celestial dance. At this moment, she realized that the celestial dance was not just about dodging, but actively guiding the space around her. Under the guidance of the mystical spatial fluctuations accompanying the dance, the densely packed spatial rifts that had seemed unwavering initially now began to follow a pattern, changing direction according to her movements. She was no longer dodging them, they were going around her as if of their own initiative. Without the slowed down time and the much-needed break, she might have needed much longer to uncover these mysteries. Finally, when the last silver light quietly swept past, guided by Mei Gongzi and Apo's celestial dance to merge into the ground and light up the final dark bit of the altar, the entire world seemed to turn silver instantly. In Mei Gongzi and Apo's vision, everything was filled with brilliant silver light, and at that moment, she felt as if she was crossing millions of kilometers of space. Her body felt light, and she felt the ground beneath her feet again. She realized she was back in the cave she was in previously. However, at this moment the cave was no longer dark. A giant silver peacock appeared before her, spreading its dazzling feathers, its eyes seemingly filled with a smile. The next moment, the eyes on each of its feathers shone with dazzling silver light, illuminating Mei Gongzi and cleansing her body. It was as if she was bathed in a river of space, undergoing wondrous changes. The peacock crown silently emerged on Mei Gongzi and Apo's forehead, and under the cleansing of the silver light, the originally golden crown began to turn platinum. In her consciousness, she felt like she had become a silver-white peacock, her form merging with the giant peacock before her. They danced gracefully throughout the entire silver-lit world, guiding and transforming the heavenly secrets into her own spatial world. The marvels lasted for a long time, or maybe it was a short time. She didn't know. But when she regained her senses, everything seemed extraordinarily beautiful. She could sense every subtle spatial change in the world. Not far in front of her, a magnificent feather gently floated. It was entirely platinum but emitted a blue halo, and the three eyes on the feather seemed to have three spaces rippling within them. The celestial plume was the Peacock clan and Apo's divine token. Mei Gongzi had held it before, but now it seemed somewhat different. It emitted a gentle glow and she felt a feeling of affinity toward it, as if it were her very own feather. She raised her hand and gently waved at it. The celestial plume silently flew to her, dancing joyfully around her. The eyes on the feather emitted brilliant streaks of light, making her vaguely glimpse into a distant future. Mei Gongzi focused her gaze. In the first eye of the plume, she saw herself dressed in splendid attire, standing high above with countless figures bowing below. In the second eye, she saw herself soaring into the sky, accompanied by a figure radiating a blue glow that complemented her brilliance. But the last eye suddenly turned dark red. As Mei Gongzi was about to look closely, an indescribable fear abruptly gripped her heart. End quote. Ah! End quote, she exclaimed, snapping out of the illusion. The celestial plume was still dancing around her, but the three eyes had returned to normal as if what she had seen was merely inside her own mind. But that was not how she felt. The vision had been more vivid than reality itself. Grasping the celestial plume in her hand, Mei Gongzi frowned slightly. What exactly was going on? The Peacock Great Demon King had once told her that beyond their mastery of space, the Peacock Demon Clan had another powerful ability, capturing the secrets of the heavens, and this was in fact the purpose behind the very first celestial dance. But in the history of the clan, only their great ancestor, the Peacock Demon Emperor, could truly capture these secrets. Before passing away, the Peacock Demon Emperor had said that in order to gain access to them, one had to gain the recognition of the celestial plume. So, had she now been acknowledged? Could what she had seen in the three eyes be these so-called secrets of the heavens? She didn't have much time to ponder this. The next moment she appeared outside the cave. There, the peacock Great Demon King had been waiting for her test to conclude. His eyes burst with intense light as soon as he saw Mei Gongzi. At that moment she appeared ethereal, as if she was real but also illusory, not living within space but being a part of space itself. And quote, "Did you succeed? Did you receive the inheritance? How long did you last on the altar?" End quote. The peacock Great Demon King asked urgently, somewhat losing composure. Mei Gongzi blinked and returned to her senses. End quote, "Quite a while." End quote. End quote, "Yes, yes. It really must have been quite a while. Otherwise you Wuden and Appos have gained the recognition of the celestial plume. I only lasted 1/5 of the way before being shredded by the spatial rifts. By my estimation, you must last at least 3/5 to truly gain the celestial plume and Appos' recognition and receive the inheritance. But in the generations before me, the best anyone managed was close to 2/5. It seems you are indeed extraordinarily gifted. No wonder you grasp the basics of the celestial dance at such a young age. You used the celestial dance to endure the test, didn't and Appos you? End quote. Mei Gongzi nodded instinctively. She didn't and Appos mentioned that she had actually passed the entire test. Before returning, her mother had told her to be reserved with the peacock Great Demon King, especially in important matters, and although she did have positive feelings for her father, she completely trusted her mother. Since the peacock Great Demon King hadn't and Appos asked, she would just go along with what he said. End quote. Did you see anything in the celestial plume? The ancestor once said that when obtaining the inheritance, the first time one comprehends the celestial secrets, they can usually see most clearly. At least a glimpse of the future from one of the feather eyes. End quote. 1. Not 3. Mei Gongzi thought to herself, but she just went along and replied, end quote. Yes, I saw myself in splendid attire standing high above, with many people bowing below. End quote. Hearing her words, the peacock Great Demon King and Appos' eyes lit up and exclaimed, end quote. Good, good, good. Ha ha ha. It seems my child truly has the hope of becoming a demon emperor in the near future. Our peacock clan has the hope of revitalization. Oh, speaking of which, you just broke through to the 9th order. Good. End quote. Mei Gongzi was stunned. Then she focused and observed her own bloodline power. Unbeknownst to her, her cultivation had skyrocketed, and she had indeed stepped into the 9th order. Not only that, but the bloodline power within her had also transformed into a crystal-clear platinum color, as if her bloodline had undergone a radical change. Her affinity with space had always been high, but right now it could not even compare to what it was before. By the time she snapped out of her thoughts, Mei Gongzi was already back at her residence. On the way to the ancestral court, it had been the peacock Great Demon King who teleported both of them, while she just observed the changes in space. She could now essentially grasp the changes brought about by her bloodline evolution. Her peacock crown seemed to have reverted to its golden color, and she assumed it would only turn platinum when she used the celestial plume. In Today and Appos' battle, her opponent was honestly not very strong. Though she had a golden bloodline, a golden fox's combat power was ultimately limited. Moreover, in front of a master of space like her, those illusion tricks were just that, tricks. Defeating her opponent brought her no sense of pride. That day, she had only told the peacock Great Demon King about one of the scenes she saw in the three eyes of the plume. The first eye undoubtedly foretold that she could become the leader of the peacock demon clan, possibly even the next peacock demon emperor. But what did the visions in the second and third feather eyes mean? The second vision indicated that a blue figure would dance alongside her in the future, becoming her partner, or perhaps, who was this person? Judging by the figure, they should indeed be human. If she was to find a partner in the future, it would certainly be a human. Who is he? Where is he? And what about the third secret of the heavens, the one she couldn't and Appos' truly see, only glimpsing a dark red vision of destruction? What did it foretell? This vision weighed heavily on her heart. On the way here, the peacock Great Demon King had told her that peering into the secrets of the heavens was not easy, even with the celestial plume. It required a great price, sometimes even life force. Their great ancestor, the peacock demon emperor, had shortened her lifespan by peering into the celestial secrets, making her one of the shorter-lived demon emperors. However, when she became a god in the future, the celestial plume would resonate with her energy once more, giving her another chance to glimpse the future. This would happen with every breakthrough. In other words, if she wanted to see the secrets of the heavens clearly, she would have to wait until her next breakthrough when she reached the god level. Meanwhile, he had also become stronger. She had watched Azura and Appo's match today but failed to understand it, just like most others. She was absolutely certain it was not an arranged match, however. With the Golden Mammoth clan and Appo's status, how could they cooperate with others to throw the battle? And with a human to boot? She owed him for being able to pass the Peacock Demon clan and Appo's bloodline inheritance test. It was certain that without the Fortune Stone and the Chronocroc bloodline imprint within the Crystal Mirror, she wouldn't and Appo's have passed the test, or at the very least, she wouldn't have passed it perfectly like she had. He treated her really well. She wondered if she could use the celestial plume to peer into his secrets and confirm his true intentions toward her. Tomorrow she would fight alongside him. Compared to one-on-one battles, fighting alongside Azura made her a little nervous. Participating in this competition was very important for Mei Gongzi. It was a perfect opportunity to test her bloodline inheritance through the rigors of battle. After the match, she didn't and Appo's see him because for some reason she didn't and Appo's want to interact with him too much. There was always a figure in her heart that frequently appeared, yet she had never been able to see him again. Before leaving Kali City this time, she had gone back to Kali Academy but still hadn't seen that guy named Tang San. Tang San, why did she always have a weird feeling whenever she thought of this name? At this moment Tang San, the Azura in her eyes, was again climbing a sacred mountain. After leaving the ancestral court square, Tang San did not return to his residence. He sent Big Cat to climb and try to gain recognition from the Sword Saint Palace while he went back to the Sunborn Sacred Mountain. The wondrous effects of the yin-yang energy had been vividly displayed in today and Appo's battle. Among his Big Cat and Appo's and Mei Gongzi and Appo's opponents, the Golden Mammoth was unquestionably the strongest, possibly one of the top contenders in this elite competition. Tang San hadn't been sure how effective his strike would be back then, but to his surprise, the infusion of yin-yang energy had played a decisive role, directly defeating his opponent. This showed how formidable the extreme yin and yang aura was. When the world was first created, yin-yang energy naturally existed. The balance of yin and yang gave birth to life and allowed it to grow, and it contained countless mysteries. Tang San used to be a god king, so he naturally had an understanding of the mysteries of the universe, but in his previous life, his cultivation was based on his martial soul, which was fixed and could not be changed. In this life, however, he had the ability to absorb and use whatever bloodline power he wanted, which allowed him to experiment more. What delighted him most today was the qualitative change brought about by the fusion of multiple abilities. If this fusion could be taken a step further, even without being at the 10th order, it wouldn't and Appo's be too difficult to fight against ordinary 10th order opponents. Moreover, mastering yin-yang energy would help him later in refining the temporal beacon. The temporal beacon was not easy to process. In addition to the laws of time and space, more powerful forces were required to create it. With Tang San and Appo's experience in divine consciousness, he could only partially do it, and he couldn't tell how great that part was until he did it. Now, with the addition of yin-yang energy, he could undoubtedly get much better results. After paying 10 Naturi coins, Tang San once again arrived at the foot of the Sunborn Sacred Mountain. He stepped onto the first step and stopped there this time. Immediately, a strong yang aura rushed toward him, invading his body. Tang San quietly guided the yang energy into himself, attempting to channel it through the yin-yang energy vortex around his blue-silver emperor. Sure enough, the vortex directly devoured the yang energy, integrating it into it, causing the yin-yang energy within the vortex to surge immediately. What surprised Tang San was that although the energy he had absorbed was 100% of yang fiery nature, a small part of it was transformed into something else within the vortex. It didn't in Appo's turn into the opposite yin and gentle energy, however. What emerged was a completely different kind of energy, balanced and powerful. This energy was different from the internal energy produced by his mysterious heaven technique, and was clearly of a higher level. Others might not know what this energy was, but Tang San, who had once controlled an entire divine realm, and a high-level one at that, recognized it at a glance. This is chaos energy. Before the world came into existence, there was the primordial chaos. From the primordial chaos emerged the two polar extremes that were now known as yin and yang. This division further led to the birth of all living beings. Could the yin and yang energies merge like a soaring dragon and a roaring tiger dancing together, and turn back into the original chaos energy? Although it was just a tiny amount, this chaos energy was incredibly precious. It was the most primordial energy, and it was immensely useful for any living being at any level of existence. The divine energy of the divine realm was a form of chaos energy. Yet chaos energy was on a higher level. In a way, it was comparable to a purified form of divine energy. The power of faith and offerings that a divine realm absorbed from the planes under its control was a source for this very chaos energy. If Tang San were still a god king, this amount of chaos energy would naturally be nothing to him. But now, as an ordinary human, far from reaching divinity, it was entirely different. This chaos energy was a massive boon for his physique and mysterious heaven technique alike. Under this tremendous nourishment, Tang San had the opportunity to enhance his physique once more. He carefully collected the chaos energy, wrapping it with his internal energy, preparing to absorb and cultivate it later. The yang energy in his body began to intensify. Although the yin-yang vortex could absorb and draw in some of it, it became unstable as more extreme yang energy entered his body. Tang San didn't and oppose, dare let it remain in this unstable state. If the balance of yin and yang was lost, it could break the imprint, nullifying all his previous efforts and causing severe injury. He quickly used the spatial power of the peacock bloodline to isolate the vortex from the yang energy he absorbed. Instead of blocking the yang energy, he let it merge into his body, using the fierce lion-tiger golden force to devour and guide it, gathering it near his soul core and compressing it as much as possible. Although the yang energy was domineering with Tang San and Appo's current abilities, and considering it was only the energy level of the first step, he could still handle it. This time he didn't and Appo's stay too long. After absorbing and compressing the extreme yang energy to a certain extent, which took about an hour, he left. His next target was naturally Earthshade Sacred Mountain. Arriving at Earthshade Sacred Mountain, Tang San paid the entrance fee and again only stepped onto the first step. This time he was even more cautious while absorbing energy. For each wisp of yin energy he absorbed, he drew out an equal amount of yang energy from the compressed cluster, shifting both together into the yin-yang vortex of the blue-silver emperor through the spatial power of the peacock demon imprint. The newly arrived yin energy was bound to cause some instability, but compared to the energy already in the vortex, it was much weaker and was quickly assimilated. Tang San could feel his yin-yang vortex growing stronger. When disturbances arose during the assimilation process, the chrono-croc imprint would be activated to slow down the process, giving them more time to merge. Sure enough, this method worked. The speed at which the yin-yang vortex within his blue-silver emperor improved was far greater than when he cultivated elsewhere. Tang San wasn't Appo's impatient, however. He refined and merged the energies bit by bit. The greater the energy strength of the yin-yang vortex itself, the faster it would assimilate the new yin-yang energy, forming a positive cycle. As a result, in about 2 hours, the yang energy previously absorbed from the Sunborn Sacred Mountain was completely assimilated and merged. This time, due to him being more careful to avoid losses, the strength of the yin-yang energy within his body had doubled by the time the fusion was complete. Of course, this wasn't Appo's the end. After exhausting the yang energy, he directly absorbed as much extreme yin energy from Earthshade Sacred Mountain before returning to the Sunborn Sacred Mountain to cultivate. He used the same approach to absorb some more yang energy. By midnight, Tang San had made 2 round trips. Although he had spent quite a few Naturi coins, the yin-yang energy within his body had increased to 4 times its previous level, and he could now use it in battle without fear of it being instantly depleted. However, by this time Tang San also noticed a problem. The yin-yang energy vortex was becoming unstable due to its increase in strength, and the polar luck domain did not help much in stabilizing it. After careful observation and judgment, Tang San discovered the issue. The reason for the instability was not a problem with his cultivation but that the energy of the blue-silver emperor, which served as a fusion catalyst, had been depleted. In other words, without the harmonizing effect of the blue-silver emperor imprint, the yin-yang energy was bound to become more and more unstable. To keep the yin-yang energy stable, it had to be cultivated to the level where yin and yang harmonized, where dragon and tiger fused. But for now, this level was still far away. Whether it was the yang energy or the yin energy, Tang San hadn't and Appos cultivated an energy core yet. This required far more time and energy. When the blue-silver emperor and Appos' energy was depleted, the only solution was to absorb higher-tier bloodline power from plant nymphs, replenishing it and enhancing its foundation. Otherwise, he would be unable to harmonize the yin and yang energies further. It couldn't and Appos be a plant nymph with either the yin or the yang attribute. It had to be something else. Otherwise, the imprint would be inclined toward one side, causing significant instability. I wonder if I will face a plant-type opponent in my next match. A second-tier bloodline would suffice. As long as he could absorb it, he could immediately upgrade his blue-silver emperor. One of Tang San and Appos' goals in this tournament was to find suitable bloodline imprints. Among his bloodline imprints, the blue-silver emperor could be considered second-tier thanks to the yin-yang energy vortex. The Golden Rock and the Chronocroc were both true blue second-tier bloodlines as well. The Discerning Eye of Heaven, Lion Tiger, and Peacock Demon imprints were first-tier. With 3 first-tier bloodlines and 3 second-tier bloodlines, he still had 2 slots available, and at least one could be filled now. He had naturally absorbed the Golden Mammoth and Appos' bloodline power, and he was keeping this bloodline imprint as a backup. But if he could absorb some bloodline power that matched his 3 second-tier bloodlines and could fuse with them, elevating them to the first tier, that would be ideal, paving the way for his future path to godhood. Tang San planned to absorb a few powerful bloodline imprints, and then select and combine them in the best way possible. Returning to the hotel, he meditated and rested. He was in a great mood, not just because the yin-yang energy had increased significantly as expected, but because he would be able to fight alongside Mei Gongzi tomorrow. The 3-5 combo would return. Though it was in another world, this feeling was genuinely fantastic. At dawn, Tang San awoke from his meditation feeling refreshed. The effects of cultivating with chaos energy were indeed remarkable. Although not much chaos energy was produced in the yin-yang vortex, it had a purifying and evolutionary impact on his internal energy, nourishing his body and increasing his physical strength. The enhancement even extended to his spiritual power, benefiting his sea of consciousness. If he could continue to use chaos energy to help his body evolve, his chances of breaking through to the god level would be much higher. He took a bath, neatly combed his hair, and changed into clean clothes, a white outfit this time. He meticulously checked every detail of his appearance to ensure he was in the best condition. After breakfast, he returned to his room to brush his teeth, put on his mask, and head straight to the ancestral court square. When he arrived at the ancestral court square, there were already many people, though most were spectators entering the venue rather than contestants. Tang San didn't and Appos know when Mei Gongzi would wake up from her rest, so he didn't and Appos sent her a message and just waited for her at the contestants' entrance to avoid disturbing her. Big Cat didn't and Appos have a match today, so he was likely resting or trying to climb the Sword Saint Sacred Mountain. Compared to yesterday, there would undoubtedly be more contestants today. Although not every participant in the individual matches would sign up for the doubles matches, most would. Coupled with their partners, the overall number of matches might be lower than yesterday, but the number of participants would certainly be higher. About half an hour before the draw began, Mei Gongzi finally sent a message through their communicator. Azura, I and Appos am on my way to the square. I and Appos I'll be there in about 10 minutes. Where are you? Hearing that familiar voice, Tang San instantly smiled as he replied and quote, I and Appos am waiting for you at the entrance of the competition venue. When you arrive, we and Appos LL line up for the draw together. And quote. Mei Gongzi quickly replied and quote, okay. And quote. In less than 10 minutes, Tang San saw her figure. She was dressed similarly to yesterday, with a hood on her head. When she saw Azura wearing white clothes today, she paused briefly before walking up to him. Seeing her stunning face under the hood, Tang San and Appos' smile grew even wider. And quote, you and Oppos re here. Let and Oppos, go line up and quote, he said, pointing to the contestants queuing for the draw. Their human forms were not particularly noticeable among the many demon and nymph races. However, they still attracted occasional glances. Many had closely watched yesterday and Oppos' individual matches. Azura and Oppos' match had seemed an awful lot like a fake fight, but Mei Gongzi and Oppos' powerful spatial control and the brilliance of her peacock crown had left a deep impression on many spectators. Moreover, she was beautiful and powerful, extremely beautiful and powerful. How could she not attract the spectators' gazes? In Today and Oppos' doubles match, their appearance as a team naturally drew attention. The day before, Tang San and Mei Gongzi hadn't focused much on studying their opponents because it was meaningless. It was an elimination round, and only the first place in each group would advance to the final. So, they only needed to pay attention to the top contenders who would advance from the group stages. The other contestants were destined to be eliminated. Today and Oppos' doubles match format was similar to yesterday and Oppos' individual matches but with fewer groups, 8 in total. Each group had about 20 pairs of contestants, so the total number of participants was indeed higher than yesterday. Yet fewer people came to draw lots than had signed up. Those with serious injuries from the individual matches, who were unable to fight any longer, as well as those who prioritized the individual matches, had withdrawn from the doubles. This was despite the generous rewards for the doubles match, which had attracted many participants. Standing in line, Tang San and Mei Gongzi walked side by side. He was now about half a head taller than her, making them look well matched. Mei Gongzi exuded a faint orchid-like fragrance. Although they were just walking together, without any physical contact, Tang San felt as if this was the happiest moment since he came to this world. He had never spent such a quiet time with Mei Gongzi before, and they were here as equal partners. At this moment he felt a strange sensation in his heart. Perhaps it was all fate. Perhaps fate allowed his lover to be reborn, and allowed his deep sorrow to turn into extreme joy. Perhaps it was fate that he could once more fight for the heart of the woman he loved. For some reason, he had recently started to feel that Mei Gongzi and Oppos' appearance was becoming more and more like Xiao Wu and Oppos'. Perhaps when she fully matured, she would regain her original appearance. My love, when will you truly return to my embrace? Tang San had always been hesitant about when to confess his feelings to Mei Gongzi. He didn't and Oppos' even know whether to confess as Azura or Tang San, which was his dilemma. Azura had done more for Mei Gongzi, but for some reason, Tang San felt she seemed to have a better impression of Janitor Tang. He still treasured that milk teacup she had given him back then. He would wait a bit longer at any rate, until they dealt with the crisis in Cali City. By then, both he and she should be adults, and that would be the right time to confess his feelings. Until then, he would always be by her side, protecting her. Besides himself, he wouldn't and Oppos' let her have any other choice. Anyone who tried to take his wife would face his wrath. Mei Gongzi turned her head slightly, looking curiously at Azura. For some reason in that instant, she keenly sensed a sudden burst of killing intent from him. It wasn't an Oppos' directed at her, but she couldn't an Oppos' tell who it was aimed at. Sensing her gaze, Azura turned to look at her, their eyes meeting. He smiled slightly. And quote, what and Oppos' wrong? And quote, nothing. Do you have any thoughts about today and Oppos' match? After all, we might encounter strong opponents, and quote, said Mei Gongzi. Tang San replied, and quote, well, I wanted to discuss our tactics yesterday, but after seeing the strength you displayed in your match, I don't and Oppos' think it and Oppos' necessary. You and Oppos' become much stronger since you left seclusion. I feel like you and Oppos' reached a level where you can assimilate with space. That and Oppos' impressive. And quote, assimilate with space? You can sense that? And quote, Mei Gongzi looked at him in surprise. Tang San nodded. And quote, the spatial rifts you created in the battle seem to split from your body. That and Oppos' what I consider the realm of space assimilation. It and Oppos' very difficult to achieve, but you can do it at such a young age. That inheritance must be extraordinary. And quote, Yes, it did help me a lot. But we shouldn't oppose. Be careless in today and oppose match. What if we encounter strong opponents like you did yesterday? And by the way, how did you do that yesterday? I mean that palm strike. End quote. Well, you know me. I tried to fuse several abilities and I transmitted my palm force directly to its heart, bypassing its external defense. That and oppose. How I defeated it. It was somewhat careless letting me get close. Otherwise it would have been tough. The golden mammoth and oppose. Defense is indeed very strong. End quote. He indeed thought that the golden mammoth's defense was useful, but after careful consideration yesterday, he decided not to rush the integration of the golden mammoth bloodline. He was concerned that any unforeseen changes during the process might affect today and oppose's match. Nothing could interfere with the return of the 3-5 combo. Mei Gongzi pondered. End quote. Transmitting force directly into the opponent and oppose's body? Is that possible? End quote. Tang San nodded. End quote. Not only is it possible, but you can do it even better than me, since you can manipulate space directly. Think about it. Space ISN and oppose. Just external, it can be internal too. I mean ISN and oppose. There's space within our bodies? And if there is, why shouldn't you be able to control it just like any other space? End quote. Hearing this, Mei Gongzi and oppose's eyes lit up as if she had grasped something, and she carefully pondered the implications of his words. End quote. When you have time, I have a simple combat technique we can practice together. It and oppose's based on controlling spatial power and should be helpful to you. End quote. Tang San said. End quote. Sure. End quote. Mei Gongzi agreed. Azura always gave her a sense of mystery and strength. Even after her recent evolution, she didn't and oppose. Feel her power surpassed his. And sometimes, his words were even more insightful than her father and oppose's. It was their turn to draw lots. Mei Gongzi looked at Tang San and quote, you do it. End quote. End quote. Okay. End quote. This time he didn't and oppose. Activate the polar luck domain but just subtly used the discerning eye of heaven to enhance his and Mei Gongzi and oppose's luck. After acquiring the polar luck domain, his use of the discerning eye of heaven had become truly seamless. He reached out and drew a lot. The lots were spread out, meaning they could end up in any group. End quote. Group 1, number 8. End quote. Tang San handed the number card to the staff. It was the first group, meaning they would be up soon after the matches began. With 3 arenas, 6 pairs would go up at a time, and they would wait in the preparation area for their opponents, pair number 7. As soon as one match finished, they would take the stage. The 2 took their number cards. Since they were up 4th in the first group, they needed to go directly to the waiting area instead of the preparation area to avoid missing their turn if the previous matches ended too quickly. Walking side by side, Mei Gongzi suddenly asked Tang San and quote, do you have any tactical ideas? End quote. She trusted Azura in this regard since they had fought together before, and his strategies were always successful against strong enemies. Tang San replied and quote, you and oppose improved so much after your retreat that I and oppose am not entirely sure of your current combat strength. How about this? You go on the offensive and I and oppose support and assist you. End quote. End quote. All right. End quote. Mei Gongzi nodded in agreement. Developing good teamwork requires practice. Since they hadn't an oppose had time to train together, they would have to rely on actual combat to build up their coordination. The draw proceeded quickly. The weather was great today with bright sunshine and a clear blue sky. As the sun fully rose in the east, the first round of the doubles match officially began. Compared to the individual match, Tang San was more nervous about today and oppose's doubles match. The opponents were unknown, and he was fighting alongside Mei Gongzi. He had to consider more variables than when fighting alone. In a one-on-one match, he was confident in his ability to adapt on the fly, but today and oppose's match included a partner, and it was Mei Gongzi of all people. The return of their past life 3-5 combo meant he had to think about more than just winning. He needed to ensure Mei Gongzi wasn't an oppose hurt at all and that she could feel his support during the match. Ideally, he would also leave a good impression on her. Mei Gongzi sensed Azura and oppose silence. She turned to look at him and asked, what in Appos wrong? Don and Appos. Do you have confidence? Tang San shook his head and said, no. I was thinking about something else. Hey, we and Appos re about to compete. Focus, Mei Gongzi said, frowning slightly. Tang San and Appos. Mouth twitched as he thought to himself, my mind is full of you buzzing with thoughts. How can I focus? As they spoke, the first 3 matches of the first round had already begun. In the waiting area, several pairs of contestants from Group 1 had arrived, waiting for their matches to start. Though Tang San and Mei Gongzi were in human form and inconspicuous among the many tall demon and nymph races, their presence had not gone unnoticed, especially Mei Gongzi and Appos, due to yesterday and Appos' individual matches. Feeling eyes on them, Tang San turned to look. Not far from them, 3 other pairs of contestants had arrived in the waiting area. The gaze came from an extremely tall contestant, even taller than the golden mammoth from yesterday, standing over 7 meters tall and very muscular. This was a bear demon with dark golden fur and fierce glint in its huge eyes. Its partner was peculiar, a stark contrast to the bear demon's large frame. The partner was a small, deformed-looking humanoid, standing only about 1.2 meters tall. It sat on the bear demon and Appos' shoulder and could easily be overlooked if not observed closely. Its head was unusually large, taking up half its height, and its limbs seemed almost atrophied, very thin and small. Tang San thought carefully and identified a very rare clan, a type of demon known as the demon infant. No one knew exactly what race the demon infant belonged to. Some legends said they were a branch of humans, while others claimed they were some kind of goblins. Their numbers were extremely few, and there were even rumors that they had gone extinct. Yet today one appeared in the competition. The demon infant was a terrifying existence with a top-level second-tier bloodline. Its body was very weak, and its vitality was correspondingly low, making reproduction difficult and pushing the species to the brink of extinction. However, in stark contrast to its frail body, its spiritual power was extraordinary. Born with a terrifying talent in this respect, a demon infant and Appos' spiritual power could start at the 7th order at birth and would undoubtedly reach the 9th order upon maturity. However, legends also said that this clan was cursed. No demon infant had ever broken through to the 10th order. Their bodies were too fragile. No matter how strong their spiritual power, they couldn't and Appos' withstand the cleansing of the tribulation lightning. Among the demon infants there was a belief that if a demon infant could become a god, it would likely become the ruler of the entire world. Unfortunately, this remained only a legend, because no demon infant had ever reached the 10th order. Yet, within the demon infant clan this legend had reached the level of faith. Thus, upon reaching adulthood, every demon infant sought ways to break through, hoping to become a god and lift the curse of extinction from their race. In Today and Appos' 2-on-2 match, Tang San was surprised to see a representative of this extremely rare clan. Its partner was a dark gold demon bear, from one of the dominant bear clans. This combination of sheer brute force and spirit was undoubtedly very powerful. Because of this, the gazes of the other 2 pairs of contestants were also focused on this pair. No one knew each other in Appos' lot numbers, so their next opponents could very well be this pair. Undoubtedly, they would be extremely difficult to deal with. The demon infant and Appos' spiritual power was so great that, purely in terms of spiritual power, it was not inferior to a first-tier bloodline. Everyone understood how significant a role such powerful spiritual power could play on the battlefield. By comparison, although some contestants recognized Mei Gongzi, they still subconsciously believed that the dark gold demon bear, demon infant pair would be stronger. In a doubles match, the complementarity of the pair was paramount after all. There were far more teams with 2 contestants from different races than from the same race, let alone the same clan, for this exact reason. After observing the 2, Tang San and Appos' gaze shifted to the other 2 pairs of contestants, and a slight smile appeared on his face. With luck on his side, he believed that his and Mei Gongzi and Appos' opponents in this round would not be the dark gold demon bear and the demon infant, but another, more suitable pair. End quote. Group 1 number 7, Group 1 number 8, please enter stage 1. End quote, announced a staff member. As they walked toward the passage, the other pair of contestants also emerged, and just as Tang San had predicted, they were not the demon infant team. The contestants faced each other, and Tang San could clearly sense the solemnity in their opponents and Appo's eyes as their gazes fixated on Mei Gongzi. It was obvious they had watched her match yesterday. They were naturally wary of a space controller from the Peacock Demon clan, a true first-tier bloodline with highly versatile space control. Following the passage, they each headed to opposite sides of the arena. Mei Gongzi turned to look at Tang San, who nodded at her. In this round they were lucky. Based on their opponents and Appo's profiles, it was a combination of second-tier bloodlines, nothing too extraordinary. Mei Gongzi and Tang San stood side by side on the stage, while their opponents also took the stage on the opposite side. Their opponents were a pair of nymphs, clearly from different races. The contestant on the left was about 4 meters tall, with pitch-black skin. Its body had a somewhat humanoid appearance, but it had 8 slender limbs with sharp spikes at the end. Its eyes emitted a sinister glow. The other contestant looked rather peculiar. Its entire body was a dazzling golden color, which initially made Tang San think it was a golden tree. But upon closer inspection he realized it wasn't an Appo's tea, as it lacked a strong life aura. Instead, there was actually a faint presence of death around it. Based on Tang San and Appo's knowledge about the various nymph races, he could identify the clans of these two opponents. The one with 8 pitch-black limbs was likely a spider tree nymph, while the dazzling golden one with eerie white eyes and a sinister appearance was probably the infamous corpse devourer nymph. The corpse devourer nymph was a kind of vine that was extremely poisonous and fed on corpses. The stronger the corpses it consumed, the faster it evolved. It had exceptional digestive abilities, and was unrivaled in terms of corrosive poison within the nymph world. The spider tree nymph was more adept at frontal combat, while the corpse devourer nymph excelled at ranged attacks, wide area attacks, and poison attacks, making it very troublesome to deal with. Both were second-tier nymphs and naturally had great strength. Their combination was clearly designed with a combination of close-quarters combat and ranged combat in mind. Tang San said to Mei Gongzi, and quote, "Let and Appo's fight separately. You take the spider tree nymph and I and Appo's I'll handle the corpse devourer nymph, okay?" End quote. End quote, okay. End quote. Mei Gongzi nodded slightly. End quote. Let the match begin. End quote. Backslash with the referee and Appo's announcement, Tang San and Mei Gongzi and Appo's first collaboration in the arena officially started. The spider tree nymph moved first. It crawled forward, its 8 limbs piercing the ground. Then it vanished, transforming into a shadow that merged into the ground. The spider tree nymph was known as the shadow assassin of the nymph world. Top-tier spider tree nymphs were almost invincible in shadow-filled environments. Once in shadow form, its speed was simply incredible, and it could cover 200 meters in an instant. In just a breath it had already reached them. Mei Gongzi stepped forward, and a shimmering silver hexagram suddenly burst out under her feet, drawn by spatial rifts. She stomped down, aiming at the incoming shadow. The spider tree nymph sprang up in advance, its 8 sharp limbs transforming into black blades in midair, slashing at Mei Gongzi. Meanwhile, on the other side, as the spider tree nymph launched its attack, the corpse devourer nymph and Appo's stomach suddenly swelled like an inflated balloon, rapidly expanding. The dazzling golden light it radiated turned into a hazy yellow aura surrounding it. Its expansion speed was tremendous. It was originally 3 meters tall, and just as the spider tree nymph and Mei Gongzi began their confrontation, its body reached 3 meters in diameter as well. But at that moment it suddenly sensed something was off. Its swollen body leaped forward like a bouncing ball. Where it had been just an instant before, a figure had silently appeared. The corpse devourer nymph leaped into the air, and the figure that appeared behind it followed suit, almost instantly pursuing. The ball spun in the air, and simultaneously, it opened its mouth, spewing a cloud of yellow mist. The mist carried an indescribable stench, enveloping the figure that followed it. Corpse miasma, and a highly toxic one at that. The corpse devourer nymph and Appo's corpse miasma accumulated as it grew and kept consuming corpses over time. The more corpses it devoured, the higher its cultivation, and the more toxic the miasma became. It had a terrifying corrosive power, enough to melt even gold and iron. Moreover, the corpse-devourer nymph could blast the poison across a large distance and cover plenty of space, in this case the battle stage. However, within the large cloud of corpse miasma it had spewed, the figure that should have been enveloped had silently vanished again. A jade-white hand suddenly appeared in its path, blocking its way. The changes happened very quickly, but being at the ninth order, the corpse-devourer nymph had a keen sense of danger. It didn't oppose. Hesitate to turn in midair, facing its opponent. This time it didn't oppose. Hold back. Its body suddenly burst like an overinflated balloon with a dull pop. A dense yellow mist spread out in all directions. Since it was now at the center of the arena, it was perfectly positioned to envelop as large an area as it could with its poison. At that moment, a fierce platinum flame rose, suddenly enveloping the exploding corpse miasma. It was as if a platinum light sphere had appeared in midair, forcefully containing the miasma within a 5-meter radius, preventing it from spreading outward. The corpse miasma was contained, and as the platinum flame swirled around them, both opponents disappeared. It took less than 2 seconds until the light sphere receded, and a figure fell to the ground out of nowhere. It was Azura. Azura and Appo's left hand held an array disc, while the corpse-devourer nymph had completely disappeared, leaving no trace behind. At this moment, the battle on the other side had also concluded. The spider tree nymph and Appo's 8 limbs were incredibly sharp. It launched a powerful attack when it emerged from the shadows in front of Mei Gongzi. However, what awaited it were numerous spatial rifts. The dense spatial rifts with terrifying cutting power instantly enveloped it, locking out any possible paths of escape. The spider tree nymph tried its best to counter with its speed and attack power. However, when it actually encountered a spatial rift, it realized that all its power was useless. Just a moment of contact and one of its limbs was severed. Just like when Mei Gongzi underwent her inheritance test, silver rays shot out, and all the space around the spider tree nymph seemed to shatter into fragments, leaving it with no place to hide. The remaining limbs simultaneously pierced the ground, not to attack but to allow it to escape, turning into shadows to flee. It needed to reunite with its partner before launching another attack. But at that moment, the surrounding space suddenly seemed to solidify, forcibly blocking the shadow. In the next instant, countless silver rays surged from all directions. The spider tree nymph and Appo's body was simply cut into bits. There was no blood, but neither was there any large piece left intact. At this moment, the nymph's miraculous nature became apparent. Although the spider tree nymph was cut into pieces, the black fragments rapidly moved toward each other, seemingly trying to reassemble. Mei Gongzi frowned slightly but did not do anything to stop it. They had already won. Insisting on killing the opponent would turn this into a beast fighting, not a competition. Looking up into the distance, she saw Azura silently landing. The corpse-devourer nymph was no longer. Azura gave her a thumbs up, and Mei Gongzi nodded back at him. This battle had been essentially effortless. End quote. Group 1 number 8 wins. End quote. The referee announced the result. Azura approached Mei Gongzi, waving his hands to gather the black fragments. The spider tree nymph and Appo's pieces were struggling to merge. He stepped forward, took out a fruit filled with life energy, crushed it, and infused the life energy into the opponent. At the same time, he flicked his other hand, and with a flickering silver light, a shriveled body flew and landed on the ground. Well, it looked more like a desiccated skin. The corpse-devourer nymph and Appo's once golden body had turned earthy yellow and was twitching on the ground. The spider tree nymph barely pieced together its cracked body. Looking at Azura and then at the twitching corpse-devourer nymph on the ground, it rasped, end quote. Thank you, end quote. Azura raised his hand to support it and said lightly, end quote. It and Appo's just a competition. End quote. After saying that, he called out to Mei Gongzi, and they walked off the stage together. The first round of the doubles match victory. They fought separately, but both easily defeated their opponents, suppressing them throughout and giving no chance to fight back. In the eyes of the audience, Mei Gongzi and Appo's battle was no different from the previous one. It was a bloodline suppression, using the Peacock Demon Clan and Appo's powerful control over space to crush the opponent, leaving no room for a counterattack. if it Waren and Appos, T for the nymphs and Appos, strong vitality. If it had been a demon or a human instead, they would have died instantly. Even so, the spider tree nymph was severely injured and would take a long time to recover. What truly caught the audience in Appos' attention, including the VIP spectators, was Azura. Once more, no one understood how he had defeated his opponent. The white-hot light sphere contained immense bloodline power, but no one could tell what happened to the corpse-devourer nymph after being enveloped by it. They could only vaguely sense the bloodline was at least at the top of the second tier, or even first tier. Then the match ended. Those who remembered Azura and Appos' performance in the individual match were the most astonished. Azura and Appos' victory over the Golden Mammoth had looked strange, as if the Golden Mammoth had intentionally thrown the match. But what about this match? Was it also a fake? If it was not, then how had this supposed human accomplished it? And if it was, then all the more reason to be curious as to how he had accomplished it. Mystery piques curiosity, of course. Sharp-eyed observers noticed the array disc in Azura and Appos' hand. It was the famous and expensive teleportation disc. It seemed he had used the teleportation disc to instantly reach the corpse-devourer nymph, teleporting twice to get close enough for an attack. In other words, close combat was his forte. If his victory over the Golden Mammoth in the first match had also been genuine and based purely on strength, then it followed that his close combat abilities were exceptional. This was the audience in Appos' perception of Azura and Appos' combat abilities. Walking off the arena, Meigongzi Kuden and Appos' helped but ask in a low voice and quote, "How did you do it? What about the corpse miasma?" And quote. Azura replied and quote, "The corpse devourer nymph is pretty dirty and smells too bad. I didn't, and Appos' wanted to contaminate you, so I got rid of it." End quote. In truth, his combat method was simple. He had used the Lion-Tiger Golden Force to prevent the corpse miasma from spreading. During this time he silently opened spatial rifts, using them to vacuum out the miasma within the Golden Force. He then sealed the corpse devourer nymph with spatial sealing while absorbing a significant amount of the corpse devourer nymph and Appos' bloodline power. The core bloodline talent of the devourer nymph was devouring, though their method of devouring was somewhat dirty. However, this did not diminish the strength of their bloodline talent, as it was still a second-tier bloodline. Helping the spider tree nymph at the end was, of course, not purely out of kindness. By infusing some life energy into it, Tang San ensured it would and Appos' die immediately. During this contact, he also conveniently absorbed some of its bloodline power. As the saying goes, the heavens follow the wishes of people. Yesterday, Tang San had exhausted his blue-silver emperor and Appos' foundation while cultivating yin-yang energy. Today and Appos' match allowed him to obtain bloodline power from plant nymphs to replenish and upgrade his blue-silver emperor, preventing the yin-yang energy from becoming unstable. Just as he and Meigongzi were talking, they encountered familiar faces. The dark gold demon bear and the demon infant, whom they had seen in the waiting area, had also finished their match and were coming out from another stage. The demon infant sat on the dark gold demon bear and Appos' shoulder, grinning. Its large head gave off a particularly sinister feeling. The dark gold demon bear and Appos' eyes glowed faintly red, and judging by the blood on its bear claws, their previous opponents probably had a grim fate. The demon infant cackled at them, then made a throat-slitting gesture. Azura and Appos' expression instantly turned cold. He wooed and Appos' care about this if it were just him, but the demon infant had directed the gesture at Meigongzi. End quote. "I hope we meet you in the next round," end quote. Azura said coldly. The dark gold demon bear didn't, and Appos' expect the human to say this and let out a low growl. The demon infant and Appos' shrill voice echoed, end quote. "Calm down. You need to stay calm and control your bloodthirst. We and Appos' meet them sooner or later, since we and Appos' in the same group and they seem to have one. On the stage you can feast. Be good." End quote. As it spoke, it patted the dark gold demon bear and Appos' head. Strangely enough, the formidable dark gold demon bear calmed down under the demon infant and Appos' soothing. Azura squinted his eyes. He sensed a special connection between the demon infant and the dark gold demon bear. Mei Gongzi frowned slightly. End quote. Let and Oppos s go. End quote. She clearly had no good impressions of these demons. End quote. All right. End quote. He just ignored them. As the demon infant said, as long as they continued they would meet eventually if they could continue competing. End quote. Stay and watch or leave. End quote. Azura asked Mei Gongzi after exiting the competition area. Mei Gongzi replied, end quote, didn't and Oppos you say you had a combat technique to teach me? Let and Oppos do it now. Where are you staying? End quote. Azura was taken aback. End quote. To my place. End quote. End quote. Where else? Do you think we should go to my place? My father is there. End quote. Mei Gongzi said irritably. End quote. Ah, right, makes sense, end quote. Azura said hastily, overjoyed at the opportunity for such private interaction. Mei Gongzi looked at him suspiciously, seeing his obvious excitement. End quote. You Don and Oppos have any ulterior motives, do you? End quote. End quote. No. I can and Oppos even beat you. You and Oppos re so strong now. Besides Don and Oppos you trust my character? End quote. Tang San said with a smile. End quote. You won and Oppos even remove your mask to show me your real face. How can I trust you? End quote. Mei Gongzi snorted. Azura sighed. End quote. I have my reasons. Please understand. End quote. End quote. Let and Oppos go. End quote. Mei Gongzi said without further comment. Tang San left the ancestral court plaza, leading Mei Gongzi back to the White Tiger Hotel. Many carriages were waiting outside the plaza, as today and Oppos event had drawn a large crowd, making it a great business opportunity. Tang San rented a carriage and gave the hotel and Oppos name. The carriage was small and enclosed, and Azura quickly smelled the faint fragrance emanating from Mei Gongzi. He wanted to say something but didn't and Oppos know how to start. Mei Gongzi remained silent, making the atmosphere inside the carriage a bit awkward. There was quite a distance between the competition venue and the White Tiger Hotel. After a while he couldn't and Oppos help but say something. End quote. Why aren't and Oppos you talking? End quote. Mei Gongzi glanced at him and said, end quote, didn't and Oppos you say and Oppos? Please understand and Oppos? What else is there to say? You know what I want to know. End quote. Tang San hesitated for a moment and then said, end quote, wait for a bit longer please. When you become the leader of the Peacock Demon Clan and the ruler of Kali City, I and Oppos LL take off my mask and tell you everything. Is that fine? End quote. Mei Gongzi and Oppos beautiful eyes stared at him intently. End quote. Will you help me get there? End quote. Azura nodded without hesitation. End quote. Of course. End quote. End quote. All right. End quote. A faint smile appeared on her pretty face and she nodded lightly. End quote. By the way, I asked you to help me find Tang San. Did you look for him? End quote. She suddenly asked. Hearing the name end quote, Tang San end quote, really startled him. End quote. I haven't and Oppos had the chance yet. After this competition I and Oppos LL look for him. Maybe he and Oppos LL be back by the time you return to Kali City. What and Oppos your relationship with this Tang San? End quote. Although he knew he shouldn't and Oppos ask he couldn't and Oppos help it even if the truth might lead to social suicide in the future. Mei Gongzi thought momentarily and said, end quote, a friend I suppose. A little guy. He and Oppos younger than me and usually sweeps the grounds at Kali Academy. He and Oppos very nice and a bit shy, but for some reason every time I see him. End quote. She paused and looked away, as if reminiscing about something. He really wanted to ask her about her feelings for Tang San, and almost blurted out his thoughts. I and Oppos Azura I and Oppos we've been so good to you yet you wouldn't and Oppos even give me a milk teacup but you gave it to Tang San. Why? Could it be that fate truly works in mysterious ways? Theoretically, she shouldn't and Oppos retain any impressions from her previous life after reincarnation into another world. Yet she feels differently about Tang San. Once the competition ends, Janitor Tang has to return to his role quickly. Little Sweeper Tang seems to have a better chance than Azura, who fights life and death battles for her. End quote. What happens when you see him? End quote, Azura asked. End quote. I can and oppose. T really say end quote. Mei Gongzi shook her head, not revealing her true feelings. Azura asked end quote. What about me? Besides not showing you my true face, do you have any other feelings about me? End quote. Mei Gongzi looked at him and quote. You and oppose. They always been helping me, I know that. You also pledged that oath, so I believe that your intentions are honest. But I just don't feel the trust I'm supposed to feel. I can and oppose. T fully trust you until I see your true face and know your real intentions. That and oppose. S honestly it. End quote. Seeing her gaze, he felt an urge to just take the mask off and reveal his face. But now wasn't and oppose. T the right time. Until the major issues in Kali City were resolved, Azura and Appo's identity was more convenient for helping her, and he didn't want to have to explain his bloodline issues for the time being. Even though they were an old couple in his previous life, being alone with her in an enclosed space for the first time in this life made him feel flushed and warm. Mei Gongzi seemed to sense something as well. She turned to him and asked and quote, Are we learning the technique here? Is there enough space? End quote. Tang San took a deep breath to calm his excitement and nodded. End quote. Don and Oppos, T worry we Don and Oppos T need much space. It can be done here. End quote. Mei Gongzi said end quote. Then let and Oppos start. I need to go back soon to avoid my father asking questions. End quote. End quote. All right. End quote. Tang San nodded. After a brief moment, he told Mei Gongzi end quote. Try creating a spatial rift and let it stay in the air. End quote. Mei Gongzi nodded and waved her hand. A silver spatial rift quietly appeared in the air. Tang San said end quote. Watch carefully. End quote. As he spoke, he raised his right hand and traced a graceful arc in the air. With her keen sense for space fluctuations, Mei Gongzi felt a strange sensation as Tang San began drawing the arc. It seemed as if the surrounding space resonated with his motion in a peculiar manner, and it wasn't an oppose. Just space. There appeared to be other energies mixed in. The arc he traced encompassed the spatial rift she had created earlier, and then the spatial rift vanished like a line on a blackboard being erased. The severed space seamlessly healed. When Mei Gongzi first entered the room, she was somewhat cautious, given the situation of being alone with a man. Although she could feel that Azura had always been kind to her, it was normal for a girl to be cautious, and her emotions were somewhat complex. But now all those emotions had turned into shock. She knew many methods of counterattacks and destroying spatial rifts. After all, the space attribute, while powerful, was not invincible. However, she had never even imagined, let alone witnessed, something like what Azura had just done, casually erasing the spatial rifts she released. End quote. How did you do that? End quote. Mei Gongzi and Appo's voice rose in surprise. Tang San explained earnestly, end quote. This technique is called the mysterious circles of heaven. The circle is the most harmonious and flawless shape in heaven and earth. There is a saying, and Appo's, embrace the circle and guard the flaw. The circle in this context represents perfection. It becomes pure when we turn the surrounding force field, space, and time into a circle. Our goal is to master how to make this pure circle flawless. The closer you get to perfection, the more all disharmonious existences within the mysterious circles of heaven will disappear. End quote. Mei Gongzi didn't and Appo's fully understand what he meant but felt that it was profound. End quote. Do it again, end quote, she said, releasing 3 spatial rifts this time. Tang San raised his hand and traced another graceful arc. Within this arc, the 3 spatial rifts disappeared as if erased. Where did these mysterious circles of heaven come from? In his previous life as the sea god, Tang San inherited a divine weapon, the sea god's trident, from his predecessor in the sea god position. The trident came with a powerful set of 13 techniques, with the most potent control move being Unpredictable Storm. This move could restrain everything and everyone, even the most powerful beings. Even God Kings would be temporarily immobilized by Unpredictable Storm. The Unpredictable Storm that Tang San had been taught was composed of multiple such circles, and Tang San and Appo's mysterious circles of heaven was just a simplified version that allowed him to use one circle at a time. He had become able to use the technique once his divine consciousness had stabilized. As time passed, his divine consciousness had recovered and his internal energy had increased. Now his foundation was strong enough for him to actually use mysterious circles of heaven, though the full version of the trident technique would have to wait until he reached the god level once more. The foundation of the mysterious circles of heaven lay in the control of space and time. By watching Mei Gongzi and Appo's matches, Tang San realized she had grasped the essence of space and could, therefore, begin to understand the mysteries of the mysterious circles of heaven. He had no reservations about sharing this with his future wife, and increasing her self-protection capabilities was certainly beneficial given the dangers she might face. At this moment, Mei Gongzi and Appo's pretty face was full of disbelief as she looked at the space where her spatial rifts had been. And quote, "Can you still do it if I attack you?" End quote, Mei Gongzi asked. Tang San nodded and said, end quote, "Of course it and Appo's meant to be used in battle, but it does consume a lot of energy. You can try attacking me." End quote. End quote. "Be careful then," end quote, Mei Gongzi said. She raised her hand and spatial rifts shot toward Tang San, although not too fast. Tang San traced a circle with his right hand and his left hand at the same time, creating two mysterious circles of heaven. When she looked at them, Mei Gongzi felt as if they encompassed the entire world. Instantly, the spatial rifts in the air disappeared, and more strangely, within this close range, she found it impossible to tear the space and create new spatial rifts. At this moment, the space seemed to have become perfect and flawless. The entire space felt less like a lake, where the toss of a stone would cause ripples, and more like the pristine surface of a diamond that could withstand external forces.